Welcome to the Lighthouse door that shouldn't have been locked by the Glitch Bureau. This book covers Lighthouse, a lighthouse found dead inside the service room beneath the lantern. The room has one heavy iron door, bolted from the inside, no windows, no storm damage, no signs of forced entry. Authorities rule it an accident. But one detail doesn't fit. The locking mechanism on the door can only be secured after the door is closed. And the bolt leaves a distinct scrape pattern when engaged by hand. That scrape is missing, which means the door wasn't locked the way everyone assumes. The mystery isn't how someone got in, it's how the door was made to look locked at all. Chapter 1, The Stormy Night. Thunder roared over Harker's Point Light, a lighthouse standing defiantly against the relentless storm. The wind howled through the cracks of the old structure, echoing the isolation felt by its inhabitants. On this tumultuous night, the lighthouse was more than a beacon. It was a prison for those trapped within its confines. Nora Pike, Owen Burke, and Victor Haynes found themselves marooned on the island, cut off from the world by the raging sea. Each had their own reasons for being there, but none anticipated the storm's ferocity. As the tempest grew, Senior Keeper Elias Crowe, a man of unwavering discipline, went about his duties with his usual precision. Elias, a fixture at the lighthouse for 3 decades, believed in the power of routine and the security of locks. He moved through the night with a sense of purpose, ensuring every detail was attended to. Yet, as the storm reached its zenith, Elias vanished into the night, leaving behind only the unsettling silence of the lighthouse. The critical element here is the mystery of Elias's disappearance. His absence was as palpable as the storm itself, a void that left the others uneasy. The lighthouse, normally a symbol of safety, now felt like a harbinger of something darker. The storm had not only trapped them physically, but also ensnared them in a web of uncertainty. As the night wore on, each person grappled with their thoughts, the howling wind a constant reminder of their predicament. In most cases, the storm would pass, but this night promised more than just weather. It hinted at secrets waiting to be uncovered. The wind howled ferociously, a relentless force that battered against the rocky outcrop where Harker's Point Light stood, defiantly against the night. The lighthouse, with its towering presence, was a solitary sentinel amidst the chaos of the storm, its rhythmic beam slicing through the darkness like a knife. Each sweep of light was a promise of safety to those navigating the treacherous waters, yet it also underscored the profound isolation of the island. The sea crashed violently against the rocks, sending sprays of salt water high into the air, while the wind carried eerie sounds that seemed to whisper secrets to anyone willing to listen. Inside the lighthouse, Elias Crowe moved with the precision of a man who had spent decades perfecting his routine. As the senior keeper, Elias took immense pride in his work, ensuring that every mechanism, every bolt, and every piece of glass in the lantern room was in impeccable condition. His life was defined by the lighthouse's demanding schedule, a regimen he followed with unwavering discipline. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, Elias maintained an order that was as much a part of him as the very stones of the lighthouse itself. As Elias went about his nightly duties, the storm intensified, isolating the island even further. Trapped by the weather were 3 others, each with their own reasons for being there. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, whose resourcefulness was matched only by her determination to prove herself. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, whose financial troubles were as turbulent as the sea outside. And Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, a man whose calm exterior masked a complexity that few could decipher. The tension in the air was palpable, a mix of the natural fury of the storm and the unspoken undercurrents among the island's inhabitants. As Elias meticulously checked the lighthouse's systems, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The beam of light flickered unexpectedly, the structure creaked ominously, and distant, unsettling sounds seemed to echo through the halls. These peculiar occurrences planted seeds of doubt in Elias's mind, foreshadowing the mystery that lay ahead. Then, without warning, Elias disappeared into the stormy night. He had stepped out to secure the lighthouse against the gale, a routine task for a man as reliable as the tides. But this time he did not return. Inside, Nora, Owen, and Victor noticed his absence but were initially unconcerned. Elias was known for his reliability, after all. Yet, as the minutes stretched into hours, a sense of unease began to creep over them, much like the shadows cast by the storm. Outside, the storm's grip on the island was unyielding, preventing any immediate search for Elias. The howling wind and crashing waves served as a constant reminder of their isolation, heightening the anxiety that gnawed at the edges of their minds. As the night wore on, the relentless nature of the storm mirrored the growing tension within the lighthouse, setting the stage for the discovery that would come with the dawn. The following morning, as the first light of day struggled to pierce the storm's lingering clouds, the body of Elias Crowe was found in the service room beneath the lantern. The room was sealed tight, the heavy iron door bolted from the inside, with no windows and no signs of forced entry. To the authorities who arrived later, it seemed an unfortunate accident, a conclusion they reached with unsettling swiftness. However, one detail stood out, a detail that refused to fit neatly into the narrative of an accidental death. The locking mechanism on the door, which should have left a distinct scrape pattern when engaged by hand, bore no such mark. This absence suggested a chilling possibility. The door had not been locked in the manner everyone assumed. The mystery was not about how someone had entered the room, but how the door had been made to appear locked at all. As the investigation unfolded, attention turned to the three individuals trapped on the island with Elias. Nora Pike, with her years of service under Elias's strict authority, had ambitions of her own. Owen Burke, burdened by financial woes exacerbated by storm delays, harbored a quiet anger that simmered beneath the surface. And then there was Victor Haynes, whose calm demeanor seemed unperturbed by the unfolding events, a calm that now felt less like innocence and more like a practiced facade. The more the authorities questioned each suspect, the more the details began to unravel. A faint scratch inside the brass keyhole, fresh and not from a key, suggested interference with the lock. Nearby, a waxed thread fiber was found caught near the bolt seam, a clue that pointed to a deliberate act. Waxed line, strong and smooth, was not something one carried without reason. It was the kind of tool used by those familiar with the workings of locks and latches, by someone who understood how systems failed. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a clearer picture of the night's events began to emerge. Elias had left behind a cryptic entry in the Lighthouse logbook. Haynes tested line, waxed. It was not a routine note but a warning, a hint at the discovery Elias had made before his untimely death. Victor Haynes, it seemed, had been manipulating the telegraph system, quietly altering messages and delaying reports, a deception that Elias had uncovered and intended to report. Under the cover of the storm, Victor had executed a plan that relied on nature itself to provide the perfect alibi. He had used the waxed thread to slide the bolt from outside, creating the illusion of a sealed room. Elias's death was not an accident, but a calculated act of murder, hidden beneath the chaos of the storm. When confronted with the evidence, Victor's calm began to crack. The storm that had served as his cover was now his undoing. As the truth came to light, Victor admitted to his actions, revealing the extent of his sabotage and the lengths he had gone to protect his secret. The storm had been his ally, but in the end it was also his downfall. With Victor taken into custody, the island slowly returned to its quiet solitude. Yet the memory of Elias Crowe and the mystery of his death lingered like a shadow over Harker's Point Light. In the aftermath, the final entry in Elias's logbook served as a haunting reminder. Locks don't stop men, they only decide who trusts them. The storm had passed, but the lessons it left behind were indelible. Trust, like the locks Elias had so meticulously maintained, was a fragile thing, easily manipulated and often misplaced. As the lighthouse continued its vigil over the sea, those who remained on the island carried with them the knowledge that sometimes the greatest danger lay not in the storm outside, but in the secrets hidden within. The lighthouse at Harker's Point stood like a sentinel against the tempestuous sky, its stark silhouette a defiant contrast to the swirling darkness above. The air was thick with tension, a palpable energy that crackled like static before a storm. Below, the sea churned violently, waves crashing against the rocky outcrop with a fury that matched the gathering storm. The wind howled through the narrow corridors of the lighthouse, creating an eerie symphony that set the tone for the unfolding mystery. Inside, Elias Crowe, the senior keeper, moved with the precision of a man who understood the importance of his duty. His meticulous nature was evident in every action, from checking the lantern's oil reserves to ensuring the foghorn was operational. Each task was performed with a deliberate care that underscored his dedication, even as the storm loomed ominously on the horizon. Elias believed that order kept chaos at bay, and his routine was a testament to this belief. As the storm gathered strength, the atmosphere within the lighthouse shifted. The other inhabitants trapped on the island were introduced, each with their own secrets and tensions. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, was seen anxiously glancing at the gathering clouds, her mind seemingly elsewhere. Her eyes betrayed a restlessness, a longing for something beyond the confines of the island and the shadow of Elias's authority. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, paced the confines of the lighthouse, his financial struggles weighing heavily on his mind. The storm delays meant missed deliveries, and with them, mounting debt. His strong hands clenched and unclenched as he walked, a physical manifestation of his quiet anger and frustration. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, maintained a calm exterior, yet his eyes flickered with unease as he observed the storm's approach. His calm demeanor was a practiced facade, a skill honed over years of working in high-pressure situations. But beneath the surface there was a tension, a sense that he knew more than he let on. As the storm finally hit, the lighthouse was engulfed in a cacophony of thunder and lightning. The power flickered, casting the interior in a ghostly light, shadows dancing across the walls like specters. It was in this moment of chaos that Elias made his way to the service room beneath the lantern, his figure silhouetted against the flashes of lightning. The heavy iron door closed behind him with a resounding thud, sealing him inside. The storm's fury reached its peak, the lighthouse shuddering under the onslaught of wind and rain. The isolation of the island was palpable, the storm severing any connection to the outside world. This sense of entrapment was mirrored in the characters' interactions, their words carrying an edge of desperation as they grappled with the storm and the secrets they harbored. In the dim light, Nora, Owen, and Victor found themselves drawn together, their shared predicament forcing them to confront their own fears and suspicions. Nora's eyes darted nervously towards the service room, a flicker of guilt crossing her features. Owen's pacing grew more agitated, his thoughts a tumult of worry and resentment. Victor remained silent, his calm exterior masking the turmoil within. As the storm raged on, the lighthouse became a microcosm of tension and uncertainty. Each character was trapped not only by the physical confines of the island, but also by the weight of their own secrets. The storm was a catalyst, a force that stripped away the veneer of normalcy and exposed the raw emotions beneath. In the midst of this turmoil, Elias's absence was keenly felt. His presence had been a constant, a steadying influence in the chaotic world of the lighthouse. Without him, the others were left adrift, their roles and relationships thrown into disarray. The storm was not just a physical threat, but a metaphorical one as well, a manifestation of the internal conflicts that simmered beneath the surface. The narrative captured the sense of foreboding as Elias disappeared into the service room, the heavy iron door closing behind him with a resounding thud. The storm outside was mirrored by the storm within, a tempest of emotions and suspicions that threatened to tear the fragile piece apart. As the night wore on, the storm showed no signs of abating. The lighthouse stood resilient against the elements, but inside, the tension was reaching a breaking point. Each character was forced to confront their own demons, their secrets threatening to spill over as the storm continued its relentless assault. The isolation of the island was complete, the storm severing any connection to the outside world. This sense of entrapment was mirrored in the characters' interactions, their words carrying an edge of desperation as they grappled with the storm and the secrets they harbored. With each passing moment, the storm's fury intensified, the wind howling through the corridors like a banshee. The power flickered again, casting the interior in an eerie light that seemed to amplify the tension. The lighthouse, once a beacon of safety, had become a prison, its walls echoing with the unspoken fears and suspicions of its inhabitants. The storm's arrival was pivotal in setting the stage for the mystery that followed. establishing the atmosphere of tension and isolation that permeated the narrative. It served as a bridge between the introduction of the characters and the discovery of Elias's body, ensuring a seamless transition that kept readers engrossed in the unfolding drama. The emotional journey was one of rising apprehension, as the storm not only threatened the physical safety of the characters, but also acted as a catalyst for the revelation of hidden truths. This subchapter was essential in creating the suspense and intrigue that drove the story forward, leaving readers eager to uncover the secrets locked within the lighthouse. In the stillness that followed the storm's peak, the lighthouse stood battered but unbowed, a testament to the resilience of those within. But the storm had left its mark, both on the physical structure and on the hearts and minds of its inhabitants. The stage was set for the mystery to unfold, the tension and isolation serving as a backdrop for the secrets that lay hidden within the walls of Harker's Point Light. As dawn broke, the storm's fury began to abate, leaving behind a world transformed. The lighthouse, once a symbol of safety and order, now stood as a monument to the chaos that had been unleashed. The characters, too, were changed, their secrets exposed by the storm's relentless assault. The mystery of Elias's disappearance loomed large, a shadow that threatened to engulf them all. The storm had been a harbinger of change, a force that swept away the old order and left in its wake a new reality. The characters were left to grapple with the consequences, their lives forever altered by the events of that fateful night. The storm's arrival had set the stage for the unfolding drama, a tale of mystery and intrigue that would captivate readers and leave them eager for more. In the aftermath of the storm, the lighthouse stood as a testament to the resilience of those who called it home. But it was also a reminder of the secrets that lay hidden within its walls, secrets that would soon come to light as the mystery of Elias's disappearance unfolded. The storm had been a catalyst, a force that had brought the characters together and set them on a path towards discovery and redemption. As the chapter drew to a close, the storm's legacy was clear. It had been a turning point, a moment of reckoning that had forced the characters to confront their own fears and suspicions. The stage was set for the mystery to unfold, the tension and isolation serving as a backdrop for the secrets that lay hidden within the walls of Harker's Point Light. The storm's arrival had been the beginning of a journey that would test the characters' resolve and reveal the truth that lay at the heart of the mystery. The first light of twilight crept over Harker's Point Light, casting a muted glow on the churning sea below. The storm was gathering strength, its ominous clouds rolling in like a dark tide, threatening to swallow the lighthouse whole. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of salt and the distant rumble of thunder, a prelude to the tempest that would soon engulf the island. In the heart of this isolated beacon stood Elias Crowe, the senior lighthouse keeper, a man as steadfast and unyielding as the tower he tended. For 30 years, Elias had dedicated himself to the relentless rhythm of the lighthouse, his routine as precise as the gears of the clockwork that powered the beacon. Tonight, as the storm approached, Elias moved through the lighthouse with the practiced ease of a man who knew every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the structure as it braced against the wind. The lantern room was Elias's sanctuary, the massive Fresnel lens its gleaming heart. He climbed the spiral staircase, each step a testament to his unwavering commitment. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, but inside, all was order and discipline. Elias checked the oil levels, adjusted the wicks, and polished the lens until it shone like a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness. This was his domain, and he took pride in its flawless operation. As he worked, Elias's thoughts drifted, as they often did, to the sea. It was a living entity, unpredictable and merciless, much like the storm that now bore down upon them. He respected its power, feared it even, but he also understood it. This understanding was etched into his very being, a silent dialogue between man and nature that played out night after night. Yet beneath his stoic exterior, Elias harbored unspoken fears. The storm was fierce, more ferocious than any he had seen in recent years. He could feel its intensity in the air, a tangible force that set his nerves on edge. As he completed his tasks, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, a subtle dissonance that tugged at the edges of his consciousness. The routine was interrupted by a sudden flicker of the lights, a power fluctuation that sent a shiver down his spine. Elias paused, his hand resting on the control panel. He was a man of action, not easily rattled, but this anomaly was troubling. He checked the electrical systems, noting a minor discrepancy that he resolved to investigate further once the storm had passed. It was a small thing, easily dismissed, but it lingered in his mind like an unanswered question. As the storm intensified, Elias's interactions with the other inhabitants of the island were brief but telling. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, passed him in the corridor, her face drawn with tension. She was capable, diligent, yet there was an air of frustration about her, a sense of being overlooked that simmered beneath the surface. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, was nowhere to be seen, likely securing supplies in the storage shed. His absence was noted, but not unexpected. He had his own burdens to bear, not least of which was the mounting debt that weighed heavily on his shoulders. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was in the radio room, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos outside. His presence was a reminder of the island's isolation, a lifeline to the world beyond. With his final checks complete, Elias paused to gaze out at the storm-lashed sea. The waves crashed against the rocks with relentless fury, the wind whipping the water into a frothy maelstrom. It was a moment of solitude, a brief respite from the demands of his duty. Yet as he stood there, he couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was more than just a force of nature. It was a harbinger of something darker, a prelude to the events that would soon unfold. With a heavy heart, Elias descended into the service room beneath the lantern, the iron door closing behind him with a resounding thud. The bolt slid into place with a finality that echoed through the chamber, a sound that would resonate throughout the mystery to come. Here, in this place of refuge, Elias was alone with his thoughts, the storm raging outside a stark contrast to the quiet within. This routine, so meticulously adhered to, was more than just a series of tasks. It was the very essence of Elias Crowe, a man defined by his duty. Yet as the storm raged on, the cracks in his routine began to show, hinting at the vulnerability beneath his stoic exterior. It was this vulnerability, this human frailty, that would ultimately lead to his tragic end. The storm reached its peak, the wind howling like a banshee, the rain lashing against the windows with relentless fury. It was during this cacophony that Elias's routine was shattered, the power fluctuation a harbinger of the technical sabotage that would later become central to the mystery. Despite his calm efficiency, there was a flicker of unease in his eyes, a recognition of the danger that lurked within the familiar. As the storm subsided, the island was left in a state of uneasy calm, the air heavy with the aftermath of the tempest. Elias's absence was noted, a shadow cast over the lighthouse by his disappearance. The routine that had defined his life was now a haunting prelude to the tragedy that would soon unfold, a mystery that would challenge the very foundations of trust and duty. In the days that followed, the island would be gripped by a sense of foreboding, the storm leaving in its wake more than just physical damage. It had unearthed secrets, exposed vulnerabilities, and set in motion a chain of events that would unravel the delicate balance of life on Harker's Point. Elias Crowe, the man who had dedicated his life to the lighthouse, was gone, but his presence lingered, a specter that haunted the corridors of the tower he had called home. The mystery of his death, the locked room that held the answers, would become the focal point of the investigation, a puzzle that demanded to be solved. Yet even as the pieces began to fall into place, the truth remained elusive, hidden beneath layers of deception and misdirection. It was a testament to the complexity of human nature, a reminder that even in the most ordered of routines, chaos lurked just beneath the surface. As the chapter drew to a close, the lighthouse stood silent, a solitary sentinel against the encroaching darkness. The storm had passed, but its impact was indelible, a reminder of the fragility of life and the power of nature. In the end, it was not the storm that had claimed Elias Crowe, but the human hand that had manipulated the locks, turning a place of safety into a prison. The legacy of Elias's routine, his dedication to duty, would live on, a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. Yet the mystery of his death, the locked room that held the key to the truth, would remain a haunting reminder of the dangers that lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. The calm before the storm, Harker's Point light stood resolute against the encroaching tempest, its beams slicing through the gathering gloom with unwavering precision. The lighthouse, perched on its rocky throne, seemed a bastion of order amidst nature's chaos. Inside, Elias Crowe, the senior keeper, moved through his evening rituals with the precision of a conductor leading a symphony. Each task, from adjusting the lamp's wick to checking the oil reserves, was performed with a diligence that spoke of years of dedication. Elias was a man of routines, his life a series of carefully orchestrated steps that kept the lighthouse functioning like a well-oiled machine. He believed that order was the antidote to chaos, and in his 30 years at Harker's Point, he had seen enough storms to know that nature could be as unpredictable as it was beautiful. As he polished the brass fittings, the rhythmic sound of the cloth against metal seemed to echo his steady heartbeat, a reminder of his role as the lighthouse's guardian. The gathering storm. Outside, the wind began to howl, a mournful prelude to the storm's symphony. The sky darkened, casting a shadow over the isolated island, transforming it into a character in its own right, brooding and foreboding. Elias took a moment to gaze out at the churning sea, its waves crashing against the rocks with increasing ferocity. It was a sight both mesmerizing and terrifying, a reminder of the power of the natural world. As he descended the spiral staircase, Elias encountered Nora Pike, the assistant keeper. Her face was etched with concern, her eyes reflecting the storm's growing menace. "Elias, the weather's worsening. Do you think we should take extra precautions?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. Elias offered a reassuring smile, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm outside. "We've weathered worse, Nora. Stick to the routine and we'll be fine," he replied, his voice steady and confident. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder before continuing his rounds, his mind already ticking through the tasks that lay ahead. The nightly duties. As the storm intensified, Elias embarked on his final rounds, the lighthouse creaking and groaning under the storm's assault. Each step echoed through the narrow corridors, the sound swallowed by the howling wind and lashing rain. The lantern room was his sanctuary, a place where he could lose himself in the rhythm of his duties, each task a familiar comfort. His thoughts drifted as he checked the lantern, ensuring its light pierced the darkness. The isolation of the island had become both a refuge and a prison, the solitude a double-edged sword. Yet in this solitude, Elias found clarity, a sense of purpose that had eluded him on the mainland. The lighthouse was his domain, and he was its keeper, a role he cherished despite its challenges, the vanishing act. With the storm reaching its crescendo, Elias made his way to the service room beneath the lantern. The wind howled like a banshee, the rain a relentless drumbeat against the windows. As he entered the room, the door closed behind him with a definitive thud, sealing him in darkness. The storm raged outside, a cacophony of sound that masked his final moments. In that instant, Elias Crowe vanished, swallowed by the shadows, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt Harker's Point. The silence descends. Elsewhere in the lighthouse, Nora, Owen, and Victor were ensconced in their quarters, each grappling with the storm in their own way. Nora paced her room, her unease growing with each passing minute. The absence of Elias's reassuring presence gnawed at her, a silent alarm that something was amiss. Yet the storm's fury kept her rooted in place, fear and instinct warring within her. Owen sat by the window, his gaze fixed on the tempest outside, his thoughts a turbulent sea of their own. The storm had delayed his deliveries, compounding his financial woes, and his frustration simmered beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Victor, the telegraph repairman, remained calm, his demeanor unruffled by the chaos outside. He was a man accustomed to storms, both natural and man-made, his calmness a learned trait. The discovery of absence. As dawn broke, the storm's fury subsided, leaving a tense silence in its wake. Nora, driven by a growing sense of dread, finally mustered the courage to search for Elias. The lighthouse was eerily quiet, the absence of its keeper a palpable void. She reached the service room, her heart pounding as she found the door ominously closed and bolted from the inside. Her knock went unanswered, and a chill ran down her spine as realization dawned. Something was terribly wrong. The door, a symbol of security, now felt like a barrier, one that separated her from the truth. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the storm's remnants, the stage was set for the mystery that would unravel amidst the isolation of Harker's Point Light. Chapter 2, The Discovery. As the first light of dawn broke over Harker's Point, the storm's fury had finally subsided. The lighthouse, battered but standing, revealed its grim secret. Elias Crowe, the steadfast keeper, lay lifeless in the locked service room beneath the lantern. The authorities, arriving with the morning tide, quickly deemed it an accident. After all, there was no sign of forced entry, and the door's bolt was securely in place. Yet something was amiss. The missing scrape pattern on the lock, a detail so easily overlooked, whispered a different story. It suggested that the door had not been locked from the inside as presumed. This anomaly caught the eye of a keen observer, someone who understood that the absence of evidence was itself a clue. In the chaos of the storm, 3 souls had been stranded on the island. Nora Pike, the diligent assistant keeper, Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner with mounting debts, and Victor Haynes, the calm telegraph repairman, each carried their own secrets and motives. The locked room, seemingly impenetrable, was now a puzzle begging to be solved. The protagonist, driven by an unyielding curiosity, began to piece together the fragments of that stormy night. The fresh scratch inside the keyhole, the waxed thread fiber caught near the bolt seam, these were not just random details, but threads weaving a tapestry of deception. The locked door had been a perfect illusion, crafted with precision and intent. As the investigation deepened, the narrative of Elias's death shifted from a tragic accident to a calculated act, setting the stage for a deeper exploration into the shadows cast by the lighthouse's towering presence. The first light of dawn broke over Harker's Point Light, casting long shadows across the desolate island. The storm had passed, leaving behind a heavy silence filled with the distant cries of seagulls. The air was crisp, each breath visible in the chill, as I stepped out into the morning, the remnants of the storm still echoing in my mind. Each step towards the lighthouse was accompanied by a growing sense of foreboding, as if the island itself was holding its breath. Inside the lighthouse, I found Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, pale and shaken. She led me to the service room beneath the lantern where Elias's body lay. The room was stark, the heavy iron door ominously closed behind us. I scanned the room, noting the absence of any signs of struggle or forced entry. The atmosphere was tense, the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below echoing in the silence. Soon after, the authorities arrived, moving with practiced efficiency as they examined the body and the room. The lead investigator, a seasoned officer, quickly ruled the death an accident, citing the lack of any visible forced entry. Yet my attention was drawn to the door, specifically the lock. I noticed the missing scrape pattern, a detail that others had overlooked. This discovery overwhelmed me with a mix of emotions: grief over the loss of Elias, frustration at the hasty conclusion drawn by the authorities, and a burning curiosity about the anomaly with the lock. This moment was crucial, setting me on a path of questioning the official narrative, driven by both personal connection and an innate sense of justice. As I examined the lock further, a key revelation emerged. The absence of the scrape pattern suggested the door was not locked from the inside as assumed. This revelation planted the seed of doubt about the nature of Elias's death and hinted at something more sinister. Reflecting on Elias's character, a meticulous man who would not have left such a detail to chance, strengthened my resolve to investigate further. As the authorities prepared to leave, I stood alone in the service room, the weight of the mystery pressing down on me. The decision was made. I would uncover the truth. Stepping out of the lighthouse, I resolved to question the individuals present on the island during the storm. The storm's remnants echoed in my mind, a metaphor for the turmoil and questions swirling within me. This set the stage for the deeper investigation to follow, maintaining the momentum and intrigue of the narrative. The island, isolated and foreboding, had trapped 3 people during the storm. Each had their own story, and each was a potential suspect. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, was capable and overlooked, waiting for a promotion Elias would never give. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, had strong hands and quiet anger, his financial struggles exacerbated by storm delays. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was calm with precise fingers, a man who fixed broken lines during storms and knew how systems failed. As I questioned each suspect, I noted their reactions. Nora wept under questioning, Owen bristled, and Victor remained calm. Calm, however, felt like innocence, until I remembered that calm is something learned. The waxed thread fiber near the bolt seam was a crucial clue, suggesting the door was locked from the outside. Further investigation revealed a cryptic entry in Elias's logbook about Victor. It hinted at potential sabotage of the telegraph system, with messages quietly altered and reports delayed. Tensions rose as the storm continued to isolate the island, the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. Confronting Victor with the evidence of the waxed thread and altered messages, his calm facade began to crack. A flashback to the night of the storm revealed Victor's actions. Elias had discovered the sabotage and intended to report it. The storm provided the perfect cover for Victor's plan. Victor confessed to manipulating the telegraph system, admitting that Elias's discovery of the sabotage posed a threat to his operations. The storm, with its wind, thunder, and waves, was not luck but planning. It was the perfect alibi. Victor was taken into custody as the storm cleared, his confession a testament to the intricate web of deceit he had woven. The island returned to its quiet solitude, but the memory of Elias's final log entry lingered. Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them. The door never locked itself. Someone made sure it did. The mystery of Elias Crowe's death was unraveled, but the lessons learned would resonate long after the storm had passed. As I reflected on the events, I realized that trust and locks are often intertwined. Yet it's essential to question what we perceive as secure. Experience shows that the truth often lies in the details, hidden in plain sight. More importantly, it's essential to remain vigilant and question the narratives presented to us. The investigation had revealed not just a murder, but a deeper understanding of human nature and the lengths to which individuals will go to protect their secrets. The lighthouse, once a symbol of safety and guidance, had become a stage for deception and betrayal. Yet it also served as a reminder of the resilience of those who seek the truth, no matter how deep it may be buried. In the end, the storm had passed, but the lessons learned would remain. The island stood as a testament to the power of observation, the importance of questioning the status quo, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Setting the scene, as the first light of dawn pierces through the dissipating storm clouds, Harker's Point Light stands resilient, its silhouette a stark contrast against the softening sky. The lighthouse, a steadfast guardian against the elements, glistens with the remnants of rain. The air is heavy with the scent of salt and damp earth, a sensory reminder of the night's tumultuous events. The storm's fury has given way to an eerie calm, yet the tranquility feels deceptive, as if the island itself holds its breath waiting for the next revelation. Discovery of the body. In the dim light, the protagonist, accompanied by Nora Pike and Owen Burke, makes a grim discovery. The body of Elias Crowe lies sprawled inside the service room beneath the lantern, a place that should have been a sanctuary, but now stands as a cryptic puzzle. The heavy iron door is bolted from the inside, presenting an enigma as impenetrable as the storm itself. No windows, no signs of forced entry, and the absence of significant damage from the storm add layers to this mystery. The room, sealed and silent, seems to whisper secrets only the dead can hear. Arrival of authorities. The arrival of local authorities brings a semblance of order to the chaos. Led by Detective Marshall, a man whose reputation for swift conclusions is both respected and feared, they approach the scene with a practiced air of authority. Detective Marshall's imposing figure commands attention as he surveys the scene with a critical eye. His presence is a beacon of certainty in uncertain times, yet beneath his confident exterior lies the potential for oversight. The initial verdict. Detective Marshall conducts a cursory examination, his gaze sweeping over the room with practiced efficiency. He notes the lack of visible forced entry and quickly rules Elias's death an accident, attributing it to a tragic mishap during the storm. The locked door, seemingly secured from the inside, supports his conclusion. A conclusion that brings a temporary sense of closure to those gathered, but one that leaves a lingering unease in the air. The overlooked detail, however, the protagonist, a keen observer with an eye for detail, notices something amiss. The locking mechanism on the door, when engaged by hand, leaves a distinct scrape pattern. This pattern is conspicuously absent, suggesting the door was not locked in the manner assumed by the authorities. This anomaly plants a seed of doubt in the protagonist's mind, a doubt that takes root and refuses to be ignored. It's a detail that demands attention, a whisper of truth amidst the clamor of assumptions, emotional undercurrents. The atmosphere is tense as the protagonist grapples with conflicting emotions. The initial relief at the storm's end is overshadowed by the chilling realization that Elias's death might not be as straightforward as it seems. Nora Pike, visibly shaken, struggles to reconcile the image of her mentor with the cold reality before her. Owen Burke, on the other hand, maintains a demeanor of quiet contemplation, his thoughts a mystery even to those who know him well. The emotional undercurrents run deep, threatening to pull those involved into their depths, setting the stage for investigation. As the authorities prepare to leave, satisfied with their verdict, the protagonist's resolve hardens. The missing scrape pattern is a clue too significant to ignore. It's a thread that, if pulled, could unravel the fabric of the official narrative. Determined to uncover the truth, the protagonist decides to delve deeper into the circumstances surrounding Elias's death. The stage is set for an investigation that promises to challenge assumptions and reveal hidden truths. Bridge to the next chapter. As the authorities depart, their presence a fleeting memory against the backdrop of the lighthouse, the protagonist stands alone. The lighthouse looms large, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets. It's a beacon not just for ships but for mysteries yet to be unraveled. The protagonist, armed with a growing sense of purpose, prepares to question the official narrative and seek answers that lie beneath the surface. The scene is set for a deeper investigation, one that promises to illuminate the shadows cast by the storm. This chapter establishes the initial conflict between the official verdict and the protagonist's suspicions, setting the groundwork for the unfolding investigation. The emotional journey of doubt, determination, and the quest for truth propels the narrative forward, ensuring a seamless transition to the next chapter. As the protagonist prepares to delve deeper into the mystery, the island, with its secrets and shadows, waits in silent anticipation. The wind howled against the lighthouse, a relentless force that seemed to seep through the very stones of Harker's Point Light. Inside, the air was thick with tension, a palpable reminder of the storm that had isolated the island and its inhabitants. The lighthouse stood as a solitary sentinel, its beam cutting through the tempestuous night, a beacon of order amidst chaos. At dawn, the storm had not yet abated, but the discovery of Elias Crowe's body brought a new kind of turbulence. Found in the service room beneath the lantern, the seasoned keeper lay motionless, a bruise marking the back of his head. The room was sealed with a heavy iron door, bolted from the inside, or so it seemed. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken glass, no disturbance. To the authorities, it was an accident, a tragic fall during the storm. But the scene was too perfect, too clean, and one detail stood out, demanding attention. The key detail was subtle yet significant. The locking mechanism on the door, an old iron bolt, left a distinct scrape pattern when engaged by hand. This pattern was absent, suggesting the door was not locked from the inside as assumed. Instead, it hinted at a more sinister possibility. The door was made to look locked, but in reality, it was manipulated from the outside. 3 people were trapped on the island that stormy night: Nora Pike, Owen Burke, and Victor Haynes. Each had their own reasons to be at Harker's Point, each with a story that intersected with Elias's final hours. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, had spent 5 years under Elias's strict authority. She was capable yet overlooked, waiting for a promotion that Elias seemed unwilling to give. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, was a man of quiet anger, his strong hands a testament to the hard life he led. Storm delays had meant missed deliveries and mounting debts, a burden that weighed heavily on him. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was calm and precise, a man who fixed broken lines during storms and understood how systems could fail. The investigation began with questioning, each suspect revealing pieces of the night's events. Nora wept, her emotions raw and unfiltered. Owen bristled, his frustration evident in his terse responses. Victor, however, remained calm, a demeanor that initially seemed like innocence, but upon reflection felt more like something learned, something practiced. It was during this questioning that a crucial discovery was made. Near the bolt seam of the door, a waxed thread fiber was found. It wasn't hair or cloth, but a strong, smooth line designed to slide easily. This was a tool of manipulation, a way to engage the bolt from the outside, creating the illusion of a locked room. Such a tool would be familiar to those who worked with lines and systems, those who understood the intricacies of mechanical locks. The realization was chilling. The door, a spring latch, locked automatically when closed. But the bolt, the one that should have been engaged from the inside, could be slid from the outside by feeding a thin line through the keyhole. The room looked sealed, the perfect illusion, the perfect lie. Elias Crowe's death was not an accident. It was a carefully orchestrated plan, executed during the loudest part of the storm, when wind, thunder, and waves masked any sound. This was not luck. It was meticulous planning, a crime hidden in plain sight. Earlier that day, Elias had made a note in his logbook, Haynes tested line, waxed. It wasn't routine, it was a warning. Elias had discovered something in the telegraph system, messages quietly altered, reports delayed. Victor Haynes wasn't just repairing lines, he was controlling them, manipulating communication to his advantage. Elias had planned to report this discovery, but he never got the chance. Confronted with the evidence, Victor's calm facade began to crack. The waxed thread, the altered messages, the cryptic log entry, all pointed to him. A flashback to the night of the storm revealed Victor's actions. He had waited for the storm to peak, ensuring nature provided the perfect cover. He had shut the door, let the latch work, and then used the waxed thread to slide the bolt from outside. Elias was left inside a room that convinced everyone to stop thinking, a room that seemed impenetrable. Victor was taken into custody as the storm cleared. There was no struggle, no denial. On the mainland, he confessed to manipulating the telegraph system, to altering messages and delaying reports. Elias had discovered the sabotage, and for that, he paid with his life. Weeks later, the Lighthouse logbook was archived, Elias's final entry a poignant reminder of the events. Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them. The door had never locked itself. Someone had ensured it did. The mystery of Harker's Point light was solved, but the memory lingered. The lighthouse returned to its quiet solitude, a beacon once more, but forever marked by the night, the storm became the perfect alibi. The core principle here is the understanding of how trust and deception can intertwine, how a seemingly secure situation can be manipulated with precision and intent. This tale serves as a cautionary reminder of the importance of vigilance and the need to look beyond the obvious, to question the impossible and trust the evidence. As readers, the lesson is clear. Always be mindful of the key detail, for it can change everything. Chapter 3: The Suspects. The storm had raged through the night, leaving Harker's Point light isolated and battered. As dawn broke, the focus shifted to the three individuals left stranded on the island alongside Elias Crowe. Each carried their own shadows, casting suspicion in the dim light of the lighthouse. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, stood by the window, her eyes distant yet determined. 5 years under Elias's rigid authority had worn her patience thin. She yearned for recognition, a promotion Elias would never grant. Her ambitions were stifled by his unyielding control, leaving her with motives that couldn't be ignored. Nearby, Owen Burke sat with hands clasped tightly, his gaze fixed on the floor. The Coast Guard runner was a man of few words, burdened by financial woes. The storm had delayed his deliveries, exacerbating his mounting debts. Frustration simmered beneath his quiet exterior, a potential catalyst in the unfolding mystery. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was a study in calm. His demeanor was steady, almost unnervingly so. With precise fingers and a voice that never wavered, he seemed unfazed by the chaos around him. Yet, his composure raised questions. Could it be a mask, hiding intentions as calculated as his repairs? As the investigation began, each suspect's motives were scrutinized. Nora's aspirations, Owen's financial desperation, and Victor's suspicious calmness painted a complex picture. The storm had trapped them, but it also revealed the tangled web of ambitions and secrets. The truth, buried beneath layers of deception, awaited discovery in the lighthouse's shadowed halls. Chapter Nora Pike's ambitions. The wind howled against the thick walls of Harker's Point Light, its relentless fury a constant reminder of the storm's power. Inside, the lighthouse stood as a solitary bastion of light against the darkness, its beam slicing through the night. But within those walls, ambitions simmered beneath the surface, as turbulent as the storm outside. Nora Pike stood by the window, her eyes tracing the path of the beam as it swept across the water. She had spent 5 years in the shadow of Elias Crowe, learning the intricacies of lighthouse keeping under his strict tutelage. Elias was a man of order, a trait that Nora both admired and resented. His dedication to the lighthouse was unwavering, yet he never seemed to see the potential in her that she knew existed. The reality is, Nora had ambitions that stretched beyond the confines of the island. She longed for a promotion, a chance to step out from behind Elias's shadow and prove her worth. But that opportunity seemed as distant as the mainland on a foggy day. Elias was a man of tradition, and tradition didn't favor change. As the storm raged, Nora's mind drifted back to the events of the previous day. The arrival of Owen Burke and Victor Haynes had been a welcome break in the monotony. Owen, with his strong hands and quiet anger, brought news from the mainland, while Victor, calm and precise, came to repair the telegraph lines. Yet, even amidst the camaraderie, Nora couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Victor had spent the afternoon in the telegraph room, his fingers deftly working over the wires. Nora had watched him from the doorway, curiosity piqued by his calm demeanor. There was something about Victor that intrigued her, a quiet confidence that seemed unshakable even in the face of the storm. Later, as the storm intensified, Elias had ascended to the lantern room, leaving Nora with a simple instruction: check the supplies. It was a task she had done countless times, yet tonight it felt different. As she moved through the storeroom, her thoughts were consumed by the possibilities that lay beyond the island. She imagined herself as the head keeper, her decisions guiding the lighthouse through storms and calm alike. But those dreams were interrupted by a sudden, chilling realization. The storm had trapped them all on the island, and the tension was palpable. Owen's frustration was evident, his missed deliveries gnawing at him like a persistent itch. Victor, on the other hand, remained an enigma, his calm exterior never faltering. As the night wore on, Nora found herself drawn to the service room beneath the lantern. The heavy iron door stood as a silent guardian, its lock a testament to Elias's belief in security. Yet, as she stood before it, a thought crossed her mind. What if the lock wasn't as secure as it seemed? The next morning, the island was still shrouded in the remnants of the storm. The discovery of Elias's body sent shockwaves through the small group, each of them grappling with the reality of the situation. The authorities arrived quickly, their verdict of an accident delivered with unwavering certainty. But Nora's instincts told her otherwise. The deciding factor is the missing scrape pattern on the lock. It was a detail that only someone familiar with the intricacies of the lighthouse would notice. As the investigation unfolded, Nora found herself under scrutiny. Her ambitions, once a source of hope, now seemed like a motive. She wept under questioning, the weight of suspicion heavy on her shoulders. Yet, beneath the tears, her mind raced, piecing together the fragments of the night. The waxed thread fiber found near the bolt seam was a clue, one that pointed to a methodical plan executed with precision. As the wind howled outside, Nora realized that the storm had provided the perfect cover for a sinister plan. Elias had died during the loudest part of the storm, a timing that was too convenient to be mere coincidence. Someone had used the chaos to mask their actions, and the evidence pointed to Victor. Victor's calm demeanor had initially seemed like innocence, but now it felt calculated. His knowledge of the telegraph system, his ability to manipulate messages, and the cryptic entry in Elias's logbook all painted a picture of a man with a plan. Nora's ambitions had made her a suspect, but Victor's actions revealed a deeper motive. The confrontation with Victor was tense, the evidence laid bare before him. His calm facade began to crack, revealing the truth beneath. The waxed thread, the altered messages, the storm as an alibi, it all pointed to a carefully orchestrated plan to silence Elias. Victor's confession came as the storm finally abated, the truth as clear as the sky above. He had manipulated the telegraph system, altering messages to suit his needs. Elias had discovered his actions and intended to report them, but Victor had used the storm to ensure that never happened. As Victor was taken into custody, Nora reflected on the events that had transpired. Her ambitions had driven her to the brink, but they had also provided the clarity needed to uncover the truth. Elias's final log entry echoed in her mind, "Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them." The lighthouse returned to its quiet solitude, the storm's memory lingering like a distant echo. Nora stood by the window once more, her eyes tracing the path of the beam. Her ambitions were unchanged, but now they were tempered by the knowledge that trust is as fragile as the locks that guard it. For Nora, the storm had been a turning point. It had revealed the cracks in the facade of security, the illusions that people relied on. But it had also shown her the strength of her own resolve. As she looked out over the water, she knew that her ambitions would guide her, just as the lighthouse guided ships through the darkness. The island was quiet now, the storm's fury replaced by a calm that felt almost unnatural. But Nora knew that beneath the surface the currents of ambition and trust continued to swirl, just as they always had. And in that quiet, she found her resolve strengthened, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Owen Burke stood at the edge of the lighthouse, his silhouette stark against the stormy sky. The wind whipped around him, relentless and wild, mirroring the chaos within. As he gazed out over the churning sea, the tempest outside seemed a mere echo of the turmoil inside his mind, a man caught in the storm of his own making. The solitude of this moment was shattered by the relentless tide of thoughts that surged through him. His mind drifted to the pile of unpaid bills and the mounting debts that seemed to crush him under their weight. The pressure to provide for his family was a constant, gnawing presence, creating a tension that permeated his every action. He could still hear his wife's voice, a gentle reminder of the promises he was struggling to keep, echoing in the recesses of his mind. In a flashback, Owen found himself in a cramped, dimly lit room, the air heavy with despair. The table before him was littered with bills and letters demanding payment, each one a reminder of the financial noose tightening around his neck. His wife's voice, though absent constant presence, her words a haunting reminder of the responsibilities he bore. The scene painted a picture of a man on the brink, his desperation, a driving force in his life, pushing him towards decisions he never thought he'd have to make. Back in the present, Owen's interactions with the other characters revealed the strain beneath his composed exterior. His conversations with Nora Pike were particularly telling, their dialogue sharp and revealing. Nora's ambitions and frustrations mirrored his own struggles, and their exchanges hinted at Owen's potential motive for wanting Elias Crowe out of the way. Yet, there was an ambiguity in their words, a careful dance around the truth that kept the reader guessing. Then came a pivotal moment. Alone in the service room, Owen stumbled upon a small, seemingly insignificant token related to the lock mechanism. It was a piece of evidence that could either incriminate him or prove his innocence. His reaction was complex, relief mingled with fear as he held the object in his hands, his mind racing with the implications. The reader was left questioning his true intentions, the line between guilt and innocence blurred by the storm of emotions within him. Throughout this subchapter, the storytelling tone drew readers into Owen's world, the descriptive language conveying his emotional journey. The oppressive weight of his financial struggles was palpable, yet there was a flicker of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, he could find a way out without resorting to crime. The narrative wove a tapestry of tension and intrigue, each thread pulling the reader deeper into the mystery surrounding Elias Crowe's death. As the subchapter drew to a close, Owen found himself once more at the lighthouse, the storm beginning to abate. The first light of dawn broke through the clouds, casting a gentle glow over the island. In that moment of quiet reflection, Owen made a silent vow to uncover the truth about Elias's death. It was a resolution born not only from a desire to clear his own name, but also to find peace amidst the chaos that had engulfed his life. This resolution set the stage for the unfolding investigation, ensuring a seamless transition into the ongoing mystery. Owen Burke's struggles were laid bare, adding layers to his character and motives. The subchapter introduced key elements that would play a crucial role in the investigation, keeping the plot flowing logically and engagingly. The narrative painted a vivid picture of a man caught in a storm, both literal and metaphorical, his journey a compelling exploration of human resilience and the quest for truth. As the lighthouse stood tall against the elements, so too did Owen Burke, his resolve unwavering in the face of adversity. The stage was set for the next chapter, the mystery deepening with each turn of the page, drawing readers ever closer to the heart of the storm. Introduction to Victor's calm. The storm had passed, but its remnants lingered ominously over Harker's Point Light. The sky was a tumultuous canvas of gray clouds, casting a gloomy shadow over the island. The lighthouse stood tall against the stormy backdrop, its beacon a solitary light in the encroaching darkness. The wind still howled through the rocky outcrops, carrying with it the scent of salt and rain. Amidst this atmospheric tension, Victor Haynes stood by the lighthouse, a figure of calm in the chaos. His presence was both reassuring and unsettling, a stark contrast to the anxiety that gripped the others stranded on the island. Victor's calm demeanor was like an anchor amidst the swirling storm. He appeared untouched by the turmoil, his expression serene, as if the chaos around was a mere inconvenience. Yet, this very calmness raised questions. In a situation fraught with tension and uncertainty, Victor's unflappable nature was both a balm and a mystery. Victor's background and role. Victor Haynes was not a native of the island. He had arrived some months ago, brought in to maintain the telegraph lines that connected the isolated lighthouse to the outside world. His reputation as a skilled telegraph repairman preceded him. He was known for his precision and reliability, traits that earned him the trust of those who relied on the telegraph for communication. Yet, despite his competence, Victor remained an enigma to many. He was a man of few words, his interactions with others limited to the necessities of his work. During the storm, Victor's role became crucial. The telegraph was the island's lifeline, and Victor ensured that it remained operational despite the violent weather. His work was often solitary, carried out in the telegraph room where the rhythmic tapping of Morse code was the only sound. In such isolated conditions, Victor's calmness was invaluable, yet it also made him an object of scrutiny. Interactions with other characters. Victor's interactions with Nora Pike and Owen Burke added layers to the island's tense atmosphere. Nora, the assistant keeper, found Victor's calm demeanor both irritating and intriguing. She was accustomed to the strict authority of Elias Crowe, the senior keeper, and Victor's unflappable nature seemed almost defiant in contrast. Her skepticism was fueled by the frustrations of her own position, overshadowed by Elias's unyielding control. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, viewed Victor differently. Burdened by financial struggles exacerbated by the storm's delays, Owen saw in Victor a potential ally. Victor's calmness was a steadying force, a quality Owen admired even as he grappled with his own frustrations. Their interactions were marked by a mutual understanding, yet beneath the surface lay unspoken tensions, subtle hints and red herrings. Victor's calm exterior masked layers of complexity. Subtle hints of his potential motivations began to emerge. In a conversation with Nora, Victor spoke cryptically about the importance of communication and the secrets it could hold. His words lingered with an air of mystery, planting seeds of doubt in Nora's mind. Meanwhile, Victor's meticulous inspection of the telegraph equipment hinted at an intensity that belied his calm demeanor. Red herrings were scattered throughout Victor's interactions. He expressed an interest in the lighthouse's mechanical operations, a curiosity that seemed innocuous on the surface but carried an undertone of suspicion. His casual mentions of past storms he had weathered served to both reassure and unsettle those around him, adding to the enigma of his character, building suspense. Victor's calmness became a focal point for the growing suspense on the island. As tensions mounted, his unchanging demeanor was both a source of comfort and a cause for suspicion. The other characters watched him closely, their eyes drawn to his every move. Victor's habit of observing the lighthouse and its inhabitants, as if calculating his next steps, added to the air of mystery that surrounded him. Moments of heightened tension were punctuated by Victor's presence. His calmness was a constant, a reminder of the unresolved questions that lingered in the air. The storm had passed, but the island remained a cauldron of uncertainty, and Victor was at its center, Transition to investigation. As the chapter drew to a close, Victor was seen alone in the telegraph room, reviewing messages with a contemplative look. It was a moment that foreshadowed his deeper involvement in the unfolding mystery. His expression, usually so composed, hinted at thoughts and plans yet to be revealed. The scene set the stage for the investigation that was to follow, as suspicions about Victor's true intentions began to crystallize. The protagonist's growing suspicion of Victor marked a turning point. The calm that had characterized Victor's presence was now a source of intrigue and doubt. The stage was set for a deeper exploration of his character, as the island's mystery deepened and the investigation moved forward. Victor Haynes's calm was no longer just a personal trait. It was a narrative device, a tool to mislead and captivate the reader as they delved deeper into the enigma of Harker's Point Light. Chapter 4. The investigation begins. The air inside the lighthouse was thick with tension, each suspect's reaction a puzzle piece waiting to be placed. Nora Pike sat across the table, her eyes red and swollen from tears. Her voice cracked as she recalled the stormy night, her fingers nervously twisting a handkerchief. Her emotional turmoil was palpable, yet it was Owen Burke's defensiveness that added another layer of intrigue. His jaw clenched as he spoke, words clipped and sharp, as if each question was an accusation he couldn't shake. Victor Haynes, however, was a study in unsettling calmness. His demeanor was as smooth as the waxed thread fiber found near the bolt seam, a fiber that told a story of manipulation, not force. This small yet crucial piece of evidence suggested the door had been locked from the outside, shifting the narrative from intrusion to deception. As the investigation deepened, the realization hit like a cold wave. The lock wasn't a barrier, but a tool in a dangerous game. The waxed thread, designed to slide effortlessly, was the key to unraveling the truth. It was clear now that someone had used the storm's chaos as a cover, waiting for the perfect moment to act. The discovery of the thread fiber was more than just evidence, it was a turning point. It forced a reevaluation of each suspect's actions and motives, pushing the investigation into uncharted territory. With the stakes raised, the focus shifted from how the killer entered to how they manipulated the lock, leaving a sealed room and a mystery that refused to be silenced. The air inside the lighthouse was thick with the scent of salt and damp stone, a constant reminder of the storm that had raged the night before. The morning light filtered through the narrow windows, casting long shadows across the floor where Elias Crowe had been found. The room felt like a tomb, silent except for the distant echo of waves crashing against the rocks below. Why would anyone want to kill Elias? The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the small group gathered in the keeper's quarters. Each face bore the weight of the storm's aftermath and the mystery that now enveloped Harker's Point Light. 3 people had been trapped on the island that night, each with their own story, their own secrets. As the wind howled outside, they had all claimed to hear nothing unusual, to see nothing that might explain how Elias had ended up dead behind a locked door. But the evidence suggested otherwise, and it was time to question the suspects. Nora Pike sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes red from tears. She had been Elias's assistant for 5 years, a role she had performed with diligence and care. Yet beneath her grief there was something else, a simmering frustration, a sense of being overlooked. Elias was a good man, she began, her voice trembling. Strict, yes, but fair. He ran this place like clockwork. Nora paused, glancing at the others. I just don't understand how this could happen. He was supposed to check the lantern and come back. We all heard the storm. It was deafening. As she spoke, her hands twisted a handkerchief, the fabric worn and frayed. It was a small detail, but telling. Nora was used to waiting, to enduring. Owen Burke stood by the window, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the gray sky. As a Coast Guard runner, he was accustomed to the sea's unpredictability, but his eyes betrayed a quiet anger, a resentment that simmered beneath his calm exterior. I missed deliveries because of the storm, he said, his voice steady but edged with frustration. And now this. It's like the seas got it in for me. Owen's gaze was fixed on the lighthouse, his expression hard. Elias didn't deserve this, but I can't help thinking, maybe someone wanted him out of the way. The suggestion hung in the air, heavy with implication. Owen's debts were no secret, and the storm had only compounded his troubles. Victor Haynes sat apart from the others, his demeanor calm and composed. As a telegraph repairman, he was used to working in the storm's chaos, his fingers deftly untangling the lines that connected the island to the mainland. Yet there was something unsettling about his calmness, a stillness that seemed out of place amidst the turmoil. "I was here to fix the lines," Victor said, his voice smooth and measured. "The storm made it difficult, but that's my job." He leaned back, his eyes meeting each person in turn. "I didn't see anything unusual. Elias was a meticulous man. If there was a problem, he would have dealt with it. Yet his calmness felt rehearsed, as if he were playing a part he had prepared for long before the storm had hit." The questioning continued, each suspect offering pieces of their story, fragments of a night that had ended in tragedy. But it was the small details that mattered, the things left unsaid that hinted at deeper truths. As the investigation unfolded, the evidence began to paint a picture that was both simple and complex. The waxed thread found near the bolt seam, the fresh scratch inside the brass keyhole, these were not the marks of an accident. They were the signs of a plan, executed with precision and intent. Elias's logbook mentioned a test, the investigator noted, flipping through the pages. A test with waxed line. It's not something you'd expect to see in a routine entry. Victor's expression remained unchanged, but the tension in the room was palpable. The storm had provided the perfect cover, the howling wind and crashing waves masking the sound of a crime committed in the dark. "The important thing to remember," the investigator continued, "is that locks don't always keep people out. Sometimes they keep the truth hidden." The realization settled over the group, a chilling understanding that the storm had not been the only force at work that night. Someone had used the chaos to their advantage, turning the lighthouse into a trap from which Elias could not escape. As the questioning drew to a close, the truth began to emerge, pieced together from the fragments of that stormy night. The door had been locked from the outside, the waxed thread sliding the bolt into place without leaving a trace. It was a deception, crafted with skill and precision, designed to mislead and misdirect. With the evidence laid bare, the focus turned to Victor, his calm demeanor now a mask slipping away. The storm had been his ally, a natural force he had harnessed to achieve his ends. "Elias discovered the sabotage," the investigator concluded, "and you couldn't let him report it. The storm gave you the opportunity, and you took it." Victor's silence was telling, the weight of the accusation settling upon him. The truth was undeniable, the evidence irrefutable. The storm had passed, but its legacy remained, a lighthouse keeper dead, and a mystery solved through the careful unraveling of lies. As Victor was led away, the island returned to its quiet solitude, the lighthouse standing sentinel against the sea. Yet the memory of that night lingered, a reminder of the thin line between order and chaos, trust and betrayal. Elias's final log entry, written in his meticulous hand, offered one last reflection. Locks don't stop men, they only decide who trusts them. The lesson was clear, the message resonant. In the end, it was not the lock that had failed Elias, but the trust he had placed in the wrong hands. And as the waves continued to crash against the rocks below, the lighthouse stood as a testament to the enduring mystery of the human heart. The wind howled around Harker's Point Light, a relentless force battering against the stone walls of the lighthouse. Inside, the air was thick with tension, a palpable unease that no amount of storm noise could drown out. 3 people were trapped on this isolated island, each with their own secrets, each with their own reasons to be wary. But amidst the chaos, one detail would unravel the mystery. The waxed thread. Senior keeper Elias Crowe was a man of order, a sentinel of the sea who believed in the sanctity of routine and the power of locks to keep chaos at bay. For 30 years, he had watched over this lonely tower, ensuring its light never faltered. Yet, on this stormy night, the very locks he trusted would betray him. At dawn, the storm's fury had subsided, leaving behind a landscape of eerie calm. In the service room beneath the lantern, Elias's body was discovered, the door seemingly locked from the inside. To the untrained eye, it was an accident, a tragic fall during the storm. But to those who looked closer, the scene told a different story. The door's bolt was thrown, the key resting in Elias's pocket. No broken glass, no signs of forced entry. It was a sealed room, a puzzle that seemed to defy logic. Yet, The absence of the distinctive scrape pattern on the lock was a glaring inconsistency, a clue that the door hadn't been locked in the way everyone assumed. Among the 3 people stranded on the island, suspicion was a shadow that loomed large. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, had served under Elias for 5 years. Capable and diligent, she had been waiting for a promotion that Elias would never grant. Then there was Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner. His strong hands and quiet anger spoke of missed deliveries and mounting debt, exacerbated by the storm's delays. Lastly, Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman with his calm demeanor and precise fingers, a man who knew how systems could fail. As the investigation began, each suspect was questioned, their reactions scrutinized. Nora wept, her tears a mixture of sorrow and frustration. Owen bristled, his anger barely contained beneath a veneer of cooperation. Victor, however, remained calm, a trait that seemed innocuous until it was remembered that calm is something learned, often by those with something to hide. The keyhole held the answer. A faint scratch inside the brass, fresh and telling. Not from a key, but from something thin, like wire. This was no ordinary lock tampering. It was the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. And then, caught near the bolt seam, a waxed thread fiber, strong and smooth, designed to slide effortlessly. Who carried waxed line? A sailor, a repairman, someone accustomed to working storms. This was the thread that would unravel the mystery, a seemingly insignificant detail that held the weight of truth. The lantern room door wasn't old-fashioned, it was a spring latch. When closed, it locked automatically. But the bolt? That could be slid from the outside if one knew where to feed a thin line. Close the door, let the latch click, feed the waxed thread through the keyhole, and slide the bolt. The room appeared sealed, the lie complete. Elias had died during the loudest part of the storm, when wind, thunder, and waves created a cacophony that masked any sound of struggle. This wasn't mere misfortune, it was planning, a calculated move by someone who waited for nature to provide the perfect alibi. Earlier that day, Elias had written a single line in his logbook, Haynes' tested line, waxed. It wasn't routine. It was a warning, a note of caution about Victor Haynes. Elias had discovered something sinister in the telegraph system. Messages altered, reports delayed. Victor wasn't repairing lines. He was controlling them, and Elias intended to report him. Confronted with the evidence, Victor's calm facade began to crack. The waxed thread, the altered messages, the storm as a cover. It was all too much to deny. In a flashback to the night of the storm, Victor's actions were revealed. He had shut the door, let the latch work, and slid the bolt from outside, leaving Elias Crowe in a room that convinced everyone to stop thinking. Victor was taken into custody at dawn, offering no struggle, no denial. On the mainland, he confessed to manipulating the telegraph system, admitting that Elias had discovered his sabotage and intended to report it the next morning. The storm had been the perfect cover for Victor's plan, a natural force that masked his calculated actions. Weeks later, as the Lighthouse logbook was archived, one final entry in Elias's hand offered a poignant reflection. Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them. The door had never locked itself. Someone had made sure it did. If you caught the waxed thread early, respect. If you didn't, you will next time. The clues were there, hidden in the details, waiting for someone to piece them together. In the end, the waxed thread wasn't just a tool of deception. It was the key to uncovering the truth, a reminder that even the smallest details can hold the greatest significance. The storm had raged through the night, a relentless force that battered the old stones of Harker's Point Light. As dawn broke, the island lay in a deceptive calm, shrouded by the mist that clung to every surface. It was in this quiet that the body of Elias Crowe was discovered, lying cold and still in the service room beneath the lighthouse lantern. The room was a fortress of iron and stone, its door a heavy barrier that seemed to defy the very idea of intrusion. Yet it was locked from the inside, with no windows to breach and no sign of forced entry. The authorities, quick to close the case, ruled it an accident, a tragic fall in the night. But one detail stood out, a whisper of a clue that refused to be silenced, the missing scrape pattern on the lock. Elias Crowe was a man of precision, a keeper of the light who believed in order and routine. For 30 years he had tended to this lighthouse, a solitary figure on a desolate rock. His life was one of strict adherence to rules, and his trust in locks was absolute. It was this trust that had betrayed him. 3 people had been trapped on the island by the storm, each with their own story and secrets. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, had worked under Elias for 5 years. She was capable yet overlooked, waiting for a promotion that Elias would never grant. Owen Burke, a Coast Guard runner, was a man weighed down by quiet anger and mounting debt, his deliveries delayed by the storm. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was a man of calm precision, accustomed to fixing broken lines in the worst of weather. The investigation began with a simple question. How could the door have been locked from the inside, yet show no sign of the scrape pattern that should have been left by the bolt? The answer lay in the keyhole, where a faint scratch told a different story. It was not made by a key, but by something thin and flexible, like a wire. A waxed thread fiber caught near the bolt seam provided the next piece of the puzzle. It was not hair or cloth, but a strong, smooth line designed to slide with ease. Such a line was not uncommon, but it was telling. It was the kind of tool carried by a sailor, a repairman, someone who worked with storms and understood the mechanics of locks. Nora wept when questioned, her tears a mix of fear and frustration. Owen bristled, his anger barely contained. But it was Victor's calm that stood out, a calm that felt learned, practiced. In the face of accusation, calm can be a shield, a way to mask the truth. The lock on the door was a spring latch, designed to engage automatically when the door closed. The bolt, however, could be manipulated from the outside if one knew where to feed a thin line. Close the door, let the latch click, and then slide the bolt using the waxed thread through the keyhole. It was a simple deception, yet effective. The room appeared sealed, the perfect crime hidden behind the guise of an impossible lock. Elias had died during the loudest part of the storm, a time when the wind, thunder, and waves drowned out all other sounds. This was no accident of timing, it was a calculated move, a plan executed with precision. Earlier that day, Elias had made a note in his logbook, Haynes tested line, waxed. It was a cryptic entry, but one that now spoke volumes. It was not routine. It was a warning. Victor Haynes had not needed force to commit his crime, only access and a lock that others trusted. He had shut the door, allowed the latch to work, and then slid the bolt from the outside, leaving Elias trapped in a room that convinced everyone to stop questioning. At dawn, when the storm had finally relented, Victor was taken into custody. There was no struggle, no denial. On the mainland, he confessed to what the storm had hidden. Elias had discovered sabotage within the telegraph system, messages that had been quietly altered, reports that had been delayed. Victor had not been repairing lines, he had been controlling them. And Elias had intended to report him, a threat that Victor could not allow. Weeks later, as the Lighthouse returned to its quiet solitude, the logbook was archived with one final entry in Elias's hand. Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them. It was a poignant reminder of the trust that had been misplaced, a trust that had cost Elias his life. The mystery of the locked room had been solved, not by the absence of evidence, but by the presence of a subtle clue, a waxed thread that spoke volumes. For those who had missed it, it was a lesson learned. For those who had seen it, a confirmation of the truth that had been hidden in plain sight. As the island settled back into its routine, the memory of that stormy night lingered, a reminder that even the most secure locks can be manipulated by those who understand their workings. In the end, it was not the lock that had failed Elias Crowe, but the trust he had placed in it. And that trust had been his undoing. Chapter 5, Uncovering Secrets. The storm raged outside, a relentless force that seemed to conspire with the secrets buried within Harker's Point Light. As I turned the pages of Elias's logbook, a cryptic entry caught my eye. Haynes tested line, waxed. The words were simple, yet they whispered of hidden intentions. What if Victor Haynes, with his calm demeanor and precise fingers, was more than just a repairman? Delving deeper, I discovered a pattern. Messages altered, reports delayed. Victor had the knowledge and the opportunity. The telegraph system, his domain, was a tool for more than communication. It was a weapon. Consider this scenario. A storm isolates the island, cutting off all contact. In such chaos, who would suspect a telegraph repairman of sabotage? The storm's isolation intensified the pressure on the suspects. Nora's tears, Owen's anger, and Victor's unsettling calm painted a tense picture. But it was the evidence that spoke loudest. The wax thread, a simple tool, had transformed a secure room into a stage for murder. Don't overlook the power of subtlety. Sometimes the smallest detail holds the greatest weight. Piece by piece, the truth emerged. Victor's calm facade began to crack under the weight of the evidence. In practice, the telegraph system had been his playground, a place where he could manipulate reality. As the storm howled outside, the isolation became a mirror for the secrets within. The realization was chilling. Elias had uncovered the truth, and Victor couldn't let him live to tell it. As I closed the logbook, the lesson was clear. Locks and storms might seem formidable, but it's the human mind that truly seals fate. The key to uncovering secrets lies in the details, hidden in plain sight, waiting for a careful mind to bring them to light. The storm outside battered the lighthouse with an unrelenting ferocity, its winds howling like a pack of wolves, while rain lashed against the windows in a relentless symphony of chaos. Inside the dimly lit quarters of the lighthouse keeper, the protagonist sat hunched over a worn and weathered tome. This was Elias Crowe's logbook, a repository of secrets and daily routines that might hold the key to understanding the mystery of his untimely death. With a methodical precision, the protagonist flipped through the pages, each entry meticulously penned by Elias himself. The logbook was a testament to Elias's disciplined nature, recording the minutiae of lighthouse operations. Yet amidst the routine, one entry stood out, a cryptic note about Victor Haynes, hinting at potential sabotage within the telegraph system. The protagonist paused, the weight of the discovery settling in like a stone in the pit of their stomach. This was the first thread in unraveling a web of deceit that threatened to ensnare them all. The protagonist's fingers traced the inked words, their mind racing with the implications. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was a man known for his calm demeanor and precise work. But this note suggested something more sinister. As they delved deeper into the logbook, a pattern emerged: altered messages, delayed reports, all cleverly manipulated by Victor. Each revelation was like a piece of a puzzle falling into place, bringing the protagonist closer to the truth of Elias's demise. Outside, the storm's fury mirrored the protagonist's growing sense of urgency. The isolation of the lighthouse heightened the tension, creating a claustrophobic atmosphere that pressed in on them from all sides. There was a sense of urgency, a race against time to solve the mystery before the storm cleared, and the opportunity slipped away. As the protagonist continued to piece together the evidence, they couldn't help but reflect on the nature of trust and betrayal. Elias's logbook had become a symbol of the fragile line between order and chaos, a testament to the consequences of misplaced trust. The protagonist's resolve hardened as they realized the importance of uncovering the truth, not just for Elias, but for the integrity of the lighthouse and its keepers. The storm outside was relentless, but inside, the protagonist's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The logbook, with its neatly penned entries, was a stark contrast to the chaos of the moment. It was a bridge between the past and the present, a link to the truth that lay buried beneath layers of deceit. As the protagonist read on, they discovered more about Victor's manipulations. The altered messages were not random. They were part of a calculated plan to control the flow of information. Victor had used his position to create a narrative that suited his needs, all the while maintaining an air of innocence. It was a chilling realization, one that sent a shiver down the protagonist's spine. Each entry in the logbook was a step closer to understanding the truth. The protagonist could almost feel Elias's presence, guiding them through the maze of lies and half-truths. Elias had been a man of order, someone who believed in the power of locks and routine to keep chaos at bay. But in the end, it was the very systems he trusted that had been used against him. The protagonist's mind was a flurry of activity, each new piece of information adding to the growing picture of Victor's betrayal. The storm outside was a constant reminder of the urgency of their task. There was no time to waste, no room for error. They had to act before the storm cleared, and the opportunity was lost. With each page turned, the protagonist's determination grew. They could feel the weight of Elias's trust on their shoulders, the responsibility to see justice done. The logbook was more than just a record of daily operations. It was a lifeline, a connection to the truth that lay just out of reach. The storm raged on, but inside, the protagonist was calm and focused. They knew what they had to do. The evidence was clear, the path forward illuminated by the light of truth. Elias's logbook had given them the tools they needed to confront Victor, to bring him to justice for his crimes. As the storm began to abate, the protagonist closed the logbook, their mind made up. They would confront Victor, armed with the evidence of his wrongdoing. The truth would not be buried beneath the storm's fury. It would shine through, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Outside, the storm clouds began to part, the first rays of sunlight breaking through. It was a sign, a promise of clarity and resolution. The protagonist stood, the logbook clutched in their hands, ready to face whatever came next. Elias's death would not be in vain. Justice would be served, and the truth would be known. In the end, it was the logbook that had provided the answers, the key to unlocking the mystery of Elias's death. The protagonist felt a sense of peace, knowing that they had done all they could to honor Elias's memory. The storm had passed, but the lessons learned would remain, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. As they prepared to confront Victor, the protagonist took a moment to reflect on the journey they had undertaken. It had been a path fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it had also been a journey of discovery and growth. They had learned the value of trust and the importance of vigilance, lessons that would serve them well in the days to come. With a final glance at the logbook, the protagonist stepped into the light, ready to face the future with courage and determination. The storm had passed, but the story was far from over. There were still questions to be answered, mysteries to be solved. But for now, they were content in the knowledge that they had done their best, that they had honored Elias's memory and uncovered the truth. The lighthouse stood tall against the horizon, a symbol of hope and resilience. It had weathered the storm, just as the protagonist had weathered the trials of the past days. Together, they would face whatever came next, united in their quest for justice and truth. The journey was just beginning, but the protagonist was ready, armed with the knowledge and strength they had gained along the way. The storm outside roared with a ferocity that seemed to seep into every crevice of the lighthouse, rattling its ancient bones. Inside, the protagonist sat hunched over Elias's logbook, the dim light casting shadows that danced across the pages. The cryptic entry about Victor Haynes stood out like a beacon in the fog, an enigma wrapped in the mundane details of lighthouse operations. It was a single line that hinted at something far more sinister than mere telegraph delays. Haynes' tested line waxed. As the protagonist traced the words with a finger, a chill ran down their spine. Elias was known for his meticulous nature. Any deviation he documented was never without reason. The vague yet suggestive note about Victor had been a warning, a breadcrumb leading to a deeper truth, hidden beneath layers of calm professionalism and routine. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a burning need for justice, the protagonist decided to retrace Victor's steps on the night of the storm. The journey began in the telegraph room, a place that now felt charged with the echoes of past deceit. The room was orderly, almost too much so, but subtle signs of tampering were evident to the trained eye. Wires were slightly out of place, and tools lay in a disarray that spoke of hurried use rather than careful maintenance. Each piece of evidence uncovered added to the growing sense of urgency. The protagonist's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle of Victor's actions. The calm demeanor Victor had always exhibited now seemed more like a carefully constructed facade. The protagonist recalled past interactions, moments where Victor had shown an unusual interest in the telegraph system's workings, asking questions that seemed innocuous at the time, but now took on a new, darker significance. The storm outside intensified, mirroring the protagonist's internal turmoil. The realization that someone they had trusted could be involved in a plot so sinister was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, the evidence was compelling, and the protagonist knew that confronting Victor was the next step in unraveling the truth. The confrontation was inevitable. The protagonist approached Victor with a calm exterior that belied the storm of emotions within. The setting was tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Victor, initially dismissive, began to show signs of nervousness as the protagonist presented the evidence of tampering. The wires, the tools, the cryptic log entry all pointed to a deliberate attempt to manipulate the telegraph system. Victor's calm facade began to crack under the weight of the protagonist's probing questions. His responses, once measured and precise, became clipped and defensive. The protagonist pressed on, their persistence uncovering the cracks in Victor's carefully maintained exterior. It was a dance of words, each step bringing them closer to the truth. The emotional journey was intense, a roller coaster of suspicion and revelation. The protagonist grappled with the possibility that Victor might have manipulated the telegraph system to cover his tracks, adding a layer of complexity to the mystery that surrounded Elias's death. The implications were staggering, making the protagonist question the very nature of trust and deception. As the confrontation drew to a close, the protagonist left with more questions than answers. Yet, there was a clearer understanding of Victor's potential motives. The realization that Victor might have been controlling the telegraph lines, altering messages, and delaying reports was a chilling thought. This revelation set the stage for the next phase of the investigation, where the protagonist would dig deeper into Victor's past and connections, inching closer to uncovering the full extent of the sabotage. This subchapter was pivotal, providing deeper insight into Victor's character and motives. It propelled the narrative forward with new revelations, maintaining the storytelling tone by weaving together suspense, character development, and plot progression. The protagonist's journey was far from over, but each step brought them closer to the truth hidden within the storm. As the protagonist reflected on the events, the storm outside began to wane, leaving behind a silence that was almost oppressive. The lighthouse stood as a solitary sentinel against the encroaching night, its light cutting through the darkness. The mystery of Elias's death was still unsolved, but the pieces were slowly falling into place. The protagonist knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but the pursuit of justice was a beacon that could not be ignored. In the quiet aftermath of the confrontation, the protagonist pondered the nature of locks and trust. Elias's final log entry echoed in their mind. Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them. It was a poignant reminder that the true barriers were not physical, but psychological. The locks that held the greatest power were those forged in the mind, and the protagonist was determined to unlock the truth no matter the cost. The investigation was far from over, but with each revelation, the protagonist grew more resolute. The storm had tested their resolve, but it had also strengthened their determination. The truth was out there waiting to be uncovered, and the protagonist would leave no stone unturned in their quest for justice. As the storm's relentless howling battered the walls of Harker's Point Light, the protagonist sat hunched over Elias Crowe's logbook, its pages illuminated by the flickering light of a solitary oil lamp. The logbook was a testament to Elias's meticulous nature, each entry a reflection of his unwavering dedication to order and precision. Yet, nestled among the routine observations and maintenance notes, was a cryptic entry that had set the protagonist on a path of discovery fraught with danger and intrigue. The entry was brief but compelling. Haynes' tested line, waxed. At first glance, it seemed innocuous, perhaps a simple note about routine maintenance, but to the protagonist, it hinted at something more sinister. Elias's suspicions about Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, were becoming clearer. The entry suggested a series of inconsistencies in the telegraph messages, discrepancies that could only be orchestrated by someone with Victor's access and expertise. The protagonist's mind raced with possibilities. Could Victor have been manipulating the telegraph system to his advantage? The implications were staggering. With the storm raging outside, cutting off all contact with the mainland, the island was a perfect stage for deception. The protagonist knew that confronting Victor directly would be risky, so they opted for a more subtle approach. During a casual conversation over dinner, the protagonist casually mentioned the telegraph issues, watching Victor's reaction closely. Victor, usually composed and unflappable, showed a slight perturbation, a momentary crack in his calm facade. It was enough to confirm the protagonist's suspicions, a pivotal moment that set the stage for a more direct confrontation. Meanwhile, the storm outside intensified, its fury amplifying the isolation within the lighthouse. The wind howled through the cracks, and the walls seemed to groan under the pressure. Inside, the tension was palpable, every sound magnified by the oppressive atmosphere. The protagonist felt the weight of the situation pressing down on them, aware that the storm could last for days, leaving them trapped with a potential murderer. Determined to gather more evidence, the protagonist delved deeper into the telegraph logs, searching for patterns. Each message, seemingly innocuous on its own, formed a larger picture of deception when viewed together. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, confirming that Victor had been manipulating the system for some time, possibly with deadly intentions. The protagonist's suspicions were further heightened by the emotional states of the other suspects. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, was increasingly anxious, her usual confidence shaken by the unfolding events. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, was visibly stressed, his financial struggles adding to his unease. These interactions added layers to the narrative, creating a web of suspicion and tension that kept the protagonist on edge. Internally, the protagonist grappled with the moral implications of their suspicions. They questioned their own judgment, wondering if they were seeing patterns where none existed, or if they were truly on the brink of uncovering a sinister plot. This internal struggle added depth to the protagonist's character, making them more relatable and human. As the storm raged on, the protagonist resolved to confront Victor with their findings, but not before ensuring they had irrefutable evidence. They meticulously documented the altered messages, each piece of evidence a step closer to the truth. The storm's fury outside served as a backdrop to the brewing storm within the lighthouse, setting the stage for the eventual confrontation. As the protagonist prepared for the inevitable confrontation, they reflected on the events that had led them to this point. Elias's death, initially ruled an accident, had revealed a darker truth. The locked room, the missing scrape pattern on the lock, and the waxed thread fiber all pointed to a carefully orchestrated plan. The realization that Elias had discovered the sabotage in the telegraph system and intended to report it added a sense of urgency to the protagonist's mission. The protagonist's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions as they pieced together the puzzle. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within, each gust of wind a reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows. Yet, amidst the turmoil, the protagonist found clarity. They were determined to see justice served, to ensure that Elias's death was not in vain. The subchapter concluded with the protagonists steeling themselves for the confrontation with Victor. They knew that the stakes were high and the outcome uncertain. But armed with the truth and a determination to see justice done, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The storm continued to rage, but within the lighthouse, a different kind of storm was brewing, one that would change the course of events forever. Chapter 6: The Confrontation. Victor Haynes stood by the window, the storm's echoes a distant memory. The protagonist laid the evidence on the table, the waxed thread and the altered telegraph messages. Each piece, a testament to Victor's betrayal, was like a chisel against his calm exterior. As the tension thickened, Victor's eyes flickered with unease, a crack in his usually impenetrable demeanor. "You knew Elias would find out," the protagonist stated, voice steady yet probing. Victor's silence spoke volumes, his calm now a brittle mask. The room felt charged, shadows of the storm still lingering in the corners. A flashback surged through Victor's mind, his meticulous planning unfurling like a dark tapestry. The storm had raged outside, a perfect cover for his clandestine actions. He had waited for the moment when nature's fury would drown out any sound, any cry for help. It was then he had executed his plan, using the waxed thread to manipulate the lock, making it seem impenetrable from the inside. "You altered the messages," the protagonist continued, pushing the narrative forward. "Elias was going to report your sabotage. You couldn't let that happen." Victor's facade finally shattered, his motivations laid bare. He had controlled the telegraph lines, feeding misinformation and delaying reports. Elias's discovery threatened to unravel everything he had built, his web of deceit, spun with precision. The confrontation reached its climax, the weight of Victor's deception collapsing under the truth. The protagonist's evidence had not just uncovered a crime, but had also revealed the frailty of trust and the lengths one would go to protect a carefully constructed lie. The wind howled against the sturdy walls of Harker's Point Light, a sentinel standing defiant against the tempest. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of sea salt and kerosene, mingling with the tension that gripped the three trapped souls. As dawn broke, the storm's fury began to wane, but the lighthouse's secrets were only starting to surface. The discovery of Elias Crowe's body had sent ripples through the small circle of island inhabitants. A veteran keeper, Elias was found lifeless in the service room beneath the lantern, a place he knew as intimately as his own thoughts. The room was locked from the inside, or so it seemed, and that conclusion was enough for most to declare it an unfortunate accident. But one detail, small yet significant, refused to conform to the narrative: a missing scrape mark on the locking mechanism. In any mystery, presenting the evidence is akin to laying the foundation of truth. Here, the evidence was more than just physical. It was a narrative woven through actions, motives, and the whispers of the storm. To unravel it, one must start with the facts as they appeared, and then peel back the layers to reveal the hidden truths, the scene of the crime. The service room was a study in minimalism, functional and unadorned. Its iron door, heavy and imposing, was designed to withstand the fiercest gales. Inside, the air was still, the silence profound. Elias lay near the lens pedestal, a bruise marking the back of his head. To the casual observer, it suggested a fall, a tragic misstep in the dark. Yet for those who looked closer, the room's orderliness seemed almost too perfect, too deliberate. The door itself was the first piece of the puzzle. A spring latch mechanism, it locked automatically when closed. The bolt, however, required manual engagement, leaving a distinct scrape pattern when secured by hand. This mark was conspicuously absent, suggesting that while the door was shut, it hadn't been bolted from the inside as assumed. The keyhole and the waxed thread. Upon examining the keyhole, a faint scratch was discovered inside the brass, a fresh mark, not from a key, but from something thin, like wire. This indicated interference with the lock after the door was closed. Further investigation revealed a waxed thread fiber caught near the bolt seam. Not hair, not cloth, but a line designed to slide smoothly through narrow spaces. Such a line was not common among the lighthouse's usual inhabitants. It was a tool of trade for those accustomed to working with intricate systems, like a telegraph repairman or a sailor. This small, seemingly innocuous fiber was a thread that, once pulled, began to unravel the tightly wound story of Elias Crowe's demise, the suspects and their stories. 3 individuals shared the island with Elias on that fateful night, each with their own story, each with a potential motive. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, diligent and capable, had worked under Elias for 5 years. Overlooked and waiting for a promotion that never came, her relationship with Elias was one of respect tinged with resentment. Under questioning, her emotions were raw, her tears genuine, yet they could also mask deeper feelings of frustration. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, a man of few words and quiet anger. The storm had delayed his deliveries, compounding his financial woes. His demeanor was defensive, bristling under the scrutiny, yet his hands, calloused and strong, spoke of a life accustomed to toil and hardship. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, calm and composed, a man who understood the language of wires and waves. His voice was steady, his answers precise, yet his calmness felt almost rehearsed, a veneer over something more calculating. Each had their reasons, their alibis, but the evidence began to point in a singular direction. Victor Haynes, with his knowledge of systems and the tools of his trade, emerged as the central figure in the unfolding drama. The method revealed, understanding how the door appeared locked was key to understanding the crime itself. The spring latch, when closed, clicked into place, creating the illusion of security. However, the bolt could be manipulated from outside if one knew how to feed a thin line through the keyhole. This technique, while requiring skill, was not beyond the capabilities of someone like Victor, who was adept at working with delicate mechanisms. By closing the door and allowing the latch to engage, Victor could then use the wax thread to slide the bolt into place, crafting a scene that would mislead anyone who came upon it. This deception was not just about physical manipulation, but about exploiting trust. the trust in locks, in appearances, and in the assumption that what seemed secure was indeed so. The motive uncovered. As the investigation deepened, Elias's logbook offered a crucial insight. A cryptic entry noted, "Haynes tested line, waxed." This was not a routine observation, but a warning, a sign that Elias had discovered something amiss. Victor's role as a repairman was a cover for more nefarious activities: sabotage of the telegraph system, altering messages, delaying reports. Elias had uncovered this deception and intended to report it, a decision that ultimately sealed his fate. Victor's calm demeanor began to fracture under the weight of evidence. The waxed thread, the altered messages, and Elias's damning log entry formed a chain of proof that was difficult to refute. Confronted with the truth, Victor's facade crumbled, revealing the calculated mind behind the seemingly impossible crime. The storm as an alibi. The storm, with its howling winds and crashing waves, had provided the perfect cover for Victor's plan. It was during the loudest part of the tempest that Elias met his end, the natural chaos masking the unnatural act. This was not a crime of passion, but one of cold calculation, where nature's fury was harnessed as an accomplice. Victor's confession, when it came, was devoid of emotion. He admitted to manipulating the telegraph lines, controlling the flow of information, and ultimately sealing Elias in a room that was designed to stop questions dead in their tracks. His actions were driven by a desire to maintain control, to keep his secrets hidden beneath the island's stormy facade. Resolution and reflection. With Victor in custody, the storm began to clear, leaving behind a landscape washed clean by rain. Yet the memory of Elias Crowe lingered, a reminder of the thin line between trust and deception. His final log entry, "Locks don't stop men, they only decide who trusts them," resonated as a poignant reflection on the nature of security and the ease with which it can be subverted. The island returned to its quiet solitude, the lighthouse once again a beacon in the night. But for those who had witnessed the events unfold, the lessons learned were indelible. In the world of mysteries, the evidence is not just about what is seen, but what is understood. It is about connecting the dots, seeing beyond the obvious, and recognizing that sometimes the most secure locks are those that deceive us into believing they are unbreakable. For those who had missed the waxed thread, there was a new awareness, a sharpened eye for detail that would serve them well in future mysteries. And for those who had caught it early, a sense of satisfaction that came from seeing the truth before it was fully revealed. In the end, the lighthouse door that shouldn't have been locked was a testament to the power of observation and the relentless pursuit of truth. The storm had finally begun to relent, its fury subsiding into a distant rumble that echoed across the island. The protagonist stood in the dimly lit service room of Harker's Point Light, a place that had become the epicenter of both mystery and revelation. This room, where Elias Crowe was found, now served as the stage for a confrontation that had been brewing beneath the surface of polite exchanges and hidden truths. The protagonists' resolve was steely, their determination palpable as they prepared to face Victor Haynes. Clutched in their hand was the evidence that would unravel the facade Victor had so meticulously constructed. The lighthouse, still shrouded in the aftermath of the storm, loomed above them, a silent witness to the impending revelation. It was a metaphor for the clarity that was about to pierce through the fog of deception. Victor was waiting in the service room, his demeanor calm, his expression unreadable. The protagonist approached with a calm but firm demeanor, the tension in the air almost tangible. The evidence was laid out methodically, starting with the waxed thread fiber found near the bolt seam. This seemingly insignificant detail was the first crack in Victor's facade, a thread that, when pulled, threatened to unravel the entire mystery. Victor listened intently, his eyes never leaving the protagonist's face. He was trying to gauge the depth of their knowledge, to assess how much of his carefully constructed narrative was about to crumble. The protagonist moved on to the altered telegraph messages, presenting them as clear evidence of Victor's tampering. Each piece of evidence was a blow to Victor's calm demeanor, his eyes beginning to dart nervously, his hands trembling slightly. In a pivotal moment, the protagonist delivered a powerful monologue. They connected the dots between the evidence and Victor's motives. painting a picture of a man caught in a web of deceit and desperation. Elias's discovery of the sabotage and his intention to report it was the catalyst, the reason Victor had resorted to such desperate measures. The protagonist's words were precise and cutting, leaving no room for denial. As the protagonist spoke, a flashback sequence unfolded, seamlessly woven into the narrative. It was the night of the storm, and Victor was seen manipulating the telegraph system, using the chaos as a cover for his actions. The scene was vivid and detailed, immersing the reader in the tension and urgency of that fateful night. Victor's meticulous planning was laid bare, his every move calculated and precise. The narrative returned to the present, where Victor's facade finally shattered. His confession was raw and emotional, his voice breaking under the weight of his guilt and the protagonist's unrelenting pursuit of the truth. Victor revealed his motivations, the extent of his deception, and the desperation that had driven him to such lengths. It was a moment of catharsis, a release of tension that had been building since the storm first trapped them on the island. As Victor's confession came to an end, the protagonist reflected on the journey to uncover the truth. It had been a path fraught with danger and deception, but their perseverance had finally been rewarded. The emotional journey was palpable, leaving readers with a mix of satisfaction and lingering questions about trust, betrayal, and the lengths one will go to protect their secrets. This confrontation was the climax of the narrative, the moment where the truth was finally unveiled. It served as a bridge between the buildup of tension in previous chapters and the resolution that would follow. The protagonist's journey was not just about solving a mystery. It was about understanding the complexities of human nature and the shadows that lurk beneath the surface of every facade. The storm had passed, but its impact lingered, much like the revelations uncovered in the service room. The lighthouse, once a symbol of isolation and mystery, now stood as a testament to the power of truth and the unyielding pursuit of justice. The protagonist's determination had pierced through the darkness, illuminating the path forward and ensuring that Elias Crowe's final words would not be forgotten. As the protagonist left the service room, the island began to return to its quiet solitude. The storm had cleared, but the memory of what had transpired would linger, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the strength of resolve. The lighthouse continued to stand sentinel, watching over the island and its secrets, a silent guardian of the truth that had finally come to light. The wind howled with a ferocity that seemed to shake the very bones of Harker's Point Light. Rain lashed against the lighthouse walls, creating a symphony of chaos that enveloped the island in an isolating embrace. The storm, with its relentless fury, served as both a physical and psychological barrier, a perfect cover for the night's sinister events. Inside the cramped, dimly lit service room of the lighthouse, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The protagonist stood firm, armed with the evidence that would unravel Victor's carefully constructed lies. The oppressive weight of the storm outside mirrored the emotional storm brewing within, as the protagonist prepared to confront Victor with the truth. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, maintained his calm demeanor, a calm that now seemed more calculated than innocent. The protagonist laid out the irrefutable evidence, the waxed thread fiber found near the bolt seam, and the altered telegraph messages that pointed directly to Victor's involvement in Elias's death. As the details were presented, the narrative shifted into a flashback, peeling back the layers of Victor's deception. On the night of the storm, Victor moved with precision, his actions masked by the tempest outside. He manipulated the telegraph system with a mix of cunning and technical skill, altering messages to create a false narrative that would serve his purposes. The storm, with its cacophony of sound, provided the perfect cover, drowning out any noise that might have betrayed his actions. Victor's motivations were as much a part of the storm as the wind and rain. Driven by desperation and greed, he believed that sabotaging the telegraph system would lead to financial gain and an escape from his troubled past. This insight into Victor's character added depth to his role as the antagonist, making his actions both understandable and reprehensible. The flashback concluded, and the scene returned to the present confrontation. Victor's calm facade began to crack under the weight of the evidence and the intensity of the storm. His initial denials gave way to anger and desperation As he realized the inevitability of his downfall, the protagonists stood resolute, their determination and moral conviction shining through the dim light of the service room. The storm outside mirrored the emotional storm within, as Victor's carefully constructed lies unraveled. The protagonist's resolve provided a stark contrast to Victor's crumbling defenses, highlighting the moral divide between them. This subchapter served as a critical turning point, advancing the plot and deepening the emotional stakes. It provided crucial revelations about Victor's character and the nature of his deception, setting the stage for the ultimate resolution of the mystery. The storm, both literal and metaphorical, acted as a powerful symbol of chaos and cover, heightening the drama and tension of this pivotal moment in the narrative. The confrontation reached a boiling point as Victor, cornered and desperate, lashed out with a fury that matched the storm outside. His anger was a volatile mix of fear and frustration, a last-ditch effort to regain control of a situation that was slipping through his fingers. But the protagonist, unwavering and steadfast, held their ground, refusing to be swayed by Victor's desperate attempts to deflect blame. "You think you've got it all figured out," Victor sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "But you don't know the half of it. You don't know what it's like to be trapped, to have no way out." The protagonist met his gaze with a steady calm, their voice cutting through the storm like a beacon of truth. "I know enough, Victor. I know that Elias was going to report your sabotage, that I know that you used the storm as your cover, thinking it would hide your actions. But the evidence speaks for itself. The waxed thread, the altered messages, they all point to you." Victor's bravado faltered, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. The storm raged on outside, its fury a stark reminder of the chaos he had tried to harness for his own gain. But now, faced with the truth, the storm was no longer his ally. It was a force of nature that would not be tamed, a reminder that some things were beyond his control. As the storm began to wane, its intensity giving way to a steady, persistent rain, the protagonist pressed on, their voice unwavering. "It's over, Victor. You can't hide behind the storm anymore. It's time to face the consequences of your actions." Victor's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him as the weight of his deception settled heavily upon him. The storm that had once been his cover was now his undoing, its fury a testament to the chaos he had unleashed. The subchapter closed with a tense standoff between Victor and the protagonist, the storm outside a mirror of the emotional turmoil within the room. The protagonist's determination and moral conviction shone through, providing a stark contrast to Victor's crumbling defenses. The storm, both literal and metaphorical, served as a powerful symbol of chaos and cover, heightening the drama and tension of this pivotal moment in the narrative. This subchapter was essential in advancing the plot and deepening the emotional stakes. It provided critical revelations about Victor's character and the nature of his deception, setting the stage for the ultimate resolution of the mystery. The storm, both literal and metaphorical, served as a powerful symbol of chaos and cover, heightening the drama and tension of this pivotal moment in the narrative. As the storm finally began to dissipate, leaving behind a landscape reshaped by its power, the lighthouse stood tall, a beacon of light in the aftermath of darkness. The protagonist's resolve had weathered the storm, and with it, the truth had come to light, shining brightly against the shadows of deception. Chapter 7, The Truth Unveiled. The room was silent, save for the rhythmic pounding of waves against the lighthouse's rocky foundation. Victor Haynes sat in the dim light, his eyes betraying a flicker of regret as he began to speak. Elias knew too much, he confessed, his voice steady yet burdened with the weight of his actions. The truth, finally unveiled, painted a chilling portrait of calculated deceit. Victor had been manipulating the telegraph system, altering messages and delaying reports to serve his own clandestine purposes. Elias Crowe, ever meticulous, had discovered the anomalies. His intent to report the sabotage threatened Victor's operations, leaving him with a single, irreversible choice. The storm, with its howling winds and relentless fury, provided the perfect cover for Victor's plan. Under the guise of routine maintenance, Victor had used his knowledge of the lighthouse's mechanisms to orchestrate a flawless deception. The spring latch on the lantern room door, combined with a simple waxed thread, created the illusion of an impenetrable seal. Elias, unsuspecting, became trapped in a room that appeared locked from within. As the storm raged, Victor executed his plan with precision. The chaos outside masked the sinister quiet inside, where Elias met his untimely end. Victor's calm demeanor, once a shield, now crumbled under the weight of his confession. "I never wanted it to end this way," he murmured, a hollow echo in the room where the truth had finally been laid bare. The revelation of Victor's actions brought the mystery to a harrowing climax, a stark reminder that trust can be both a tool and a weapon. The storm cleared, but its legacy lingered, a testament to the tragic consequences of deceit. The lighthouse stood defiant against the waning storm, its beams cutting through the mist like a sentinel's watchful gaze. Inside the dimly lit main room, the air was thick with tension, a palpable energy that crackled like the remnants of lightning outside. The protagonist, steeled by the weight of truth, faced Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman whose calm veneer had finally begun to fracture. "Victor," the protagonist began, voice steady yet edged with determination, "we need to talk about Elias Crowe." The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation and the promise of revelation. Victor shifted, his eyes darting momentarily to the darkened corners of the room as if seeking an escape. But there was no escape now. The protagonist had pieced together the puzzle, each fragment of evidence a thread leading inexorably to this moment. "The waxed thread fiber found near the bolt seam," the protagonist continued, holding Victor's gaze. "The absence of the scrape pattern on the lock and Elias's logbook entry, it all points to you." Victor's calm began to waver, his hands twitching slightly as he clasped them together. "You can't seriously believe," he started, but the protagonist cut him off. "Believe it? Victor, I know it. You manipulated the telegraph messages, didn't you? You sabotaged the system to cover your tracks. Elias found out, and you couldn't let him expose you." A flash of defiance crossed Victor's face, but it quickly faded, replaced by a weary resignation. He looked down, the fight leaving him as the truth became undeniable. "I didn't want it to end this way," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The protagonist watched as Victor's defenses crumbled, revealing a man driven by desperation and fear. "Tell me why," the protagonist urged, a mix of anger and empathy coloring the words. "Why did you do it?" Victor took a deep breath, the storm outside echoing the turmoil within. "Elias was going to ruin me," he confessed, his voice raw with emotion. "He discovered the alterations in the telegraph system. I was trying to protect myself." The protagonist listened intently, the room silent, save for the distant rumble of thunder. "You used the storm as a cover," the protagonist said, piecing together the narrative. "You made it look like an accident." Victor nodded, his eyes haunted by the weight of his actions. "I knew the storm would mask the noise. I didn't plan for it to happen this way. But when Elias found out, I panicked." The confession was not just a recounting of events, but an emotional unraveling, each word a thread pulling Victor's carefully constructed facade apart. The protagonist felt a pang of understanding, recognizing the desperation that had driven Victor to such lengths. "You staged his death," the protagonist said, the words heavy with finality. "You locked him in a room that convinced everyone to stop thinking." Victor's shoulders slumped, the fight gone from him. "I thought I could control it," he said, almost to himself. "But I was wrong." The protagonist stood silent for a moment, reflecting on the tragic consequences of deceit and the fragile nature of trust. "Elias believed in order and locks," the protagonist said softly, "but you proved that locks don't stop men, they only decide who trusts them." Victor was taken into custody as the storm's fury finally abated, the first light of dawn breaking over Harker's Point Light. The protagonist watched as the small boat carried Victor away, the island returning to its quiet solitude. As the lighthouse stood silent once more, the protagonist reflected on the events that had unfolded. Elias's death had left an indelible mark on the island's small community, a reminder of the lengths people would go to protect themselves and the tragic cost of betrayal. In the end, justice was served, but it was a bittersweet resolution. The loss of a life and the shattering of trust cast a long shadow, one that would linger in the memories of those left behind. The protagonist turned away from the lighthouse, the weight of the truth heavy on their shoulders. But there was a sense of closure, a recognition of the growth from a passive observer to an active seeker of truth. As the protagonist walked away from the lighthouse, the echoes of Victor's confession still resonated in their mind. It was a story of desperation and deceit, but also one of understanding and the relentless pursuit of justice. And as the island slowly woke to a new day, the protagonist knew that while the storm had passed, the lessons learned would not be forgotten. The storm had roared through the night, a relentless symphony of wind and rain against the sturdy walls of Harker's Point Light. As dawn broke, the lighthouse stood defiant against the tumultuous sea, shrouded in a mist that blurred the line between water and sky. It was here, amidst the echoes of the storm, that Elias Crowe made his discovery, one that would unravel the quiet order he had maintained for 30 years. Elias, the senior keeper, was a man of precision. Every detail of his life was governed by routine, every aspect of the lighthouse meticulously maintained. He believed in the sanctity of order, the kind that kept chaos at bay and men honest. But as the first light of morning crept over the horizon, it revealed a scene that defied the very order he cherished. The body of Elias Crowe lay near the base of the lens pedestal, his head bearing a bruise that suggested a fall. To the untrained eye, it was a tragic accident, a misstep during the storm. But for those who knew Elias, it was an ending that didn't fit. The room was too orderly, too untouched by the chaos of the night. Authorities arrived swiftly, their verdict equally hasty. An accident, they declared, and the case was closed before it began. Yet, amidst the whispers of the wind and the crash of waves, one detail stood out, a detail that would not be silenced. The door to the lantern room, a heavy iron barrier, was shut tight, the bolt thrown, and the key resting in Elias's pocket. No broken glass, no forced entry. A sealed room, the kind that ends investigations early. But the lock bore no scrape marks, the kind left by the bolt when engaged by hand. This lock hadn't been secured in the way everyone assumed. The mystery wasn't how someone got in, but how the door was made to look locked at all. 3 people had been trapped on the island by the storm: Nora Pike, Owen Burke, and Victor Haynes. Each had their own reasons for being there, their own stories to tell. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, had worked under Elias for 5 years, capable but overlooked, waiting for a promotion that never came. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, was a man burdened by financial struggles, his quiet anger simmering beneath the surface. And Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman, was calm and precise, a man who understood the fragility of systems and how they could fail. As the investigation began, the protagonist, a detective with an eye for detail, questioned each suspect, noting their reactions. Nora wept, her tears a testament to her loyalty and frustration. Owen bristled, his silence a shield against the world. But it was Victor's calm that was most telling. Calm, the detective knew, was something learned, a skill honed over time. In the lantern room, the detective's careful examination revealed a faint scratch inside the brass keyhole, fresh and not from a key. It was the mark of something thin, like wire. Near the bolt seam, a waxed thread fiber clung, a clue that spoke of interference. Not hair, not cloth, but waxed line, strong and smooth, designed to slide. It was the kind of line used by sailors, repairmen, those who worked the storms. The realization hit with the force of the storm itself. The door, with its spring latch, locked automatically when closed. The bolt, however, could be slid from the outside if one knew where to feed a thin line. Close the door, let the latch click, feed the waxed thread through the keyhole, and slide the bolt. The room appeared sealed, the deception complete. Elias had died during the loudest part of the storm, and wind and thunder masked all other sounds. It wasn't luck, it was planning. Someone had waited for nature to provide the perfect alibi. Earlier that day, Elias had written a single line in his logbook. Haynes' tested line, waxed. It was not routine, it was a warning. Elias had discovered something that threatened the order he held dear. Victor Haynes didn't need force, he needed access and a lock people trusted. He had shut the door, let the latch work, and slid the bolt from outside, leaving Elias in a room that convinced everyone to stop thinking. Victor was taken at dawn, his calm demeanor unchanged, his denial absent. On the mainland, he confessed to what the storm had hidden. Elias had uncovered sabotage within the telegraph system, messages altered, reports delayed. Victor wasn't repairing lines, he was controlling them. And Elias was going to report him the next morning. Weeks later, the Lighthouse logbook was archived, Elias's final entry a testament to his understanding. Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them. The door had never locked itself. Someone had made sure it did. In the end, the island returned to its quiet solitude, the storm a distant memory. But the lessons learned lingered. Trust, like the locks Elias believed in, was fragile, easily manipulated by those who knew where to apply pressure. The discovery, Elias's discovery, was not just of a crime, but of the nature of trust itself. For those who had missed the wax thread, the lesson was clear. Look closer, question the impossible, and trust the evidence over appearances. Elias's discovery was more than a solution to a locked room mystery. It was a reminder that the truth, like the sea, is often hidden beneath the surface, waiting for those willing to seek it out. The storm had passed, leaving the island in a shroud of eerie calm. The lighthouse stood resolute against the backdrop of a clearing sky, its beacon no longer needed in the daylight. Yet, beneath its towering presence, a mystery brewed that defied the simplicity of its surroundings. The death of Elias Crowe, the senior keeper, had been ruled an accident, but the evidence whispered otherwise. It was a puzzle wrapped in the mundane, a locked room that was never truly locked. The perfect alibi, crafted with precision and intent. The morning after the storm, the island was a tableau of desolation. Debris littered the rocky shore, and the air was thick with the scent of salt and seaweed. 3 figures moved with purpose, their steps crunching on the gravel path leading to the lighthouse. Nora Pike, Owen Burke, and Victor Haynes, all with their own reasons for being here, all with secrets to guard. Nora, the assistant keeper, was a study in quiet determination. She had spent 5 years under Elias's stern watch, learning the rhythms of the lighthouse, the quirks of its machinery, and the solitude that came with the job. But beneath her capable exterior lay a simmering frustration. She had waited patiently for a promotion that never came, her ambitions stifled by Elias's unyielding standards. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, carried the weight of missed deliveries and mounting debts. The storm had delayed his schedule, and each delay chipped away at his reputation and finances. His strong hands were a testament to his labor, but his quiet anger spoke of deeper struggles that the storm had only exacerbated. And then there was Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman. His calm demeanor was a mask, a carefully maintained facade that belied a mind always calculating, always planning. He was a man who thrived in chaos, who knew how to manipulate systems to his advantage. The storm had provided him with the perfect cover, an opportunity to execute a plan meticulously crafted. Inside the lighthouse, the service room was a scene of unsettling order. Elias lay near the lens pedestal, a bruise on the back of his head. To the casual observer, it was a fall, an unfortunate accident in the midst of a storm. But to a discerning eye, it was a staged conclusion. The room was too neat, too untouched by the chaos that had raged outside. The keyhole was the first clue, a faint scratch inside the brass that suggested tampering. Not from a key, but from something thin, like wire. It was a subtle mark, easily overlooked, but it spoke volumes. Someone had interfered with the lock after the door was closed, creating the illusion of a sealed room. Nearby, caught near the bolt seam, was a waxed thread fiber. Not hair, not cloth, but a line designed for strength and stealth. It was the kind of line used by sailors, by repairmen, by those who understood the art of deception. The thread was a thread of truth, unraveling the narrative of an accidental death. The door itself was a marvel of engineering, a spring latch that locked automatically when closed. The bolt, however, could be manipulated from outside if one knew where to feed the thin line. It was a technique that required knowledge, skill, and a willingness to deceive. Close the door, let the latch click, feed the waxed thread through the keyhole, and slide the bolt. The room appeared sealed, the lie complete. As the investigation unfolded, the storm's fury seemed to echo in the tension between the suspects. Nora wept under questioning, her tears a mix of grief and frustration. Owen bristled, his anger barely contained. But Victor remained calm, his composure unshaken. It was the calm of a man who believed he had covered his tracks, who trusted in the chaos of the storm to mask his actions. Yet calm can be a learned behavior, a practiced response to scrutiny. And in Victor's case, it was a veneer that began to crack under the weight of evidence. Elias's logbook, found in the keeper's quarters, held a cryptic entry that pointed to Victor. Haynes' tested line, waxed. It was not a routine note, but a warning, a signal that Elias had discovered something amiss. The storm had provided the perfect alibi, its noise covering the sounds of a struggle, its darkness concealing the truth. But as the clouds cleared, so did the path to the truth. Victor Haynes had not been repairing lines. He had been controlling them, altering messages, delaying reports. Elias had discovered the sabotage, and Victor knew that his secret would be exposed. Confronted with the evidence, Victor's calm facade began to crumble. The waxed thread, the altered messages, the bruise on Elias's head, it was all too much to deny. In a flashback to the night of the storm, the truth emerged. Victor had waited for the loudest part of the storm, when the wind and thunder would drown out any sounds of struggle. He had entered the service room, confronted Elias, and left him to die, sealing the door behind him with the waxed thread. Victor's confession was a release, a surrender to the inevitability of his actions. He admitted to manipulating the telegraph system, to controlling the flow of information, to using the storm as a cover for his crime. Elias had been a threat to his operation, and the storm had provided the perfect opportunity to silence him. As Victor was taken into custody, the storm's aftermath lingered on the island. The lighthouse returned to its quiet solitude, its beacon once again guiding ships safely through the night. But the memory of Elias's death and the mystery of the locked room remained, a testament to the complexity of human nature and the thin line between order and chaos. In the weeks that followed, the Lighthouse logbook was archived, a record of events that had unfolded with the inevitability of a storm. Elias's final entry, written in his own hand, served as a poignant reminder. Locks don't stop men, they only decide who trusts them. It was a fitting epitaph for a man who had dedicated his life to maintaining order, only to be undone by the very systems he trusted. The perfect alibi had been crafted with precision, but in the end it was the small details that unraveled the lie. The waxed thread, the scratch in the keyhole, the bruise on Elias's head, each piece of evidence a thread in a tapestry of deception. For those who seek the truth, the lesson is clear. Trust in evidence, not in appearances. And remember that even the most perfect alibi can be undone by the smallest of details. Chapter 8. Resolution and Reflection. As the storm finally dissipated, a sense of resolution settled over the island. Victor Haynes, the telegraph repairman with a calm demeanor masking calculated intentions, was taken into custody. The islanders watched as he was led away, the realization of his betrayal still fresh in their minds. The air was thick with a mix of relief and lingering unease. In the quiet aftermath, the protagonist found solace in Elias's final log entry. The words were simple yet profound. Locks don't stop men, they only decide who trusts them. This reflection on trust and security resonated deeply, prompting a contemplation of how easily illusions can be crafted and believed. The locks, once symbols of safety, had become instruments of deception. The island returned to its usual solitude, the lighthouse standing as a silent sentinel. Yet, the events that unfolded left an indelible mark on those involved. The memory of Elias Crowe, a man who valued order and integrity, lingered like a shadow. His belief that locks could keep chaos at bay had been shattered, revealing a harsh truth about human nature and the fragility of trust. This chapter of the island's history concluded with a sense of closure, but not without leaving questions in its wake. Readers are left to ponder the deeper themes explored throughout the story, how trust can be both a shield and a vulnerability, and how the illusion of security can be as dangerous as the threats it aims to defend against. The lighthouse, once a beacon of safety, now serves as a reminder of the complexities of human intentions and the deceptive simplicity of locks. The sky over Harker's Point Light began to clear, the storm's fury finally abating, leaving behind a heavy silence that seemed to envelop the island. The air was thick with a mix of relief and apprehension as the protagonist, Nora Pike and Owen Burke, stood at the base of the lighthouse. Their eyes were fixed on the horizon where the Coast Guard cutter emerged through the dissipating mist, a symbol of the resolution that was finally at hand. Victor Haynes, now restrained and subdued, walked beside the protagonist towards the awaiting vessel. His once defiant demeanor had shifted to one of resignation. The tension that had gripped the island was about to culminate in his apprehension, offering a sense of closure to the mystery that had loomed over them all. As they walked, Victor turned to the protagonist, his voice quiet and reflective. "I never meant for it to go this far," he confessed, his eyes betraying a vulnerability that had been hidden beneath his calm exterior. "Desperation and fear of exposure drove me, not malice." This unexpected revelation added layers to Victor's character, transforming him from a mere antagonist into a flawed individual caught in a web of his own making. The protagonist, while firm in their resolve, found themselves acknowledging Victor's humanity. This interaction served as a bridge to the themes of trust and security that had been woven throughout the narrative. As they reached the cutter, Victor was handed over to the authorities. This act symbolized not only the resolution of the immediate mystery, but also the restoration of order to the island. The protagonist watched as Victor was led away, a complex mix of emotions swirling within them. Returning to the lighthouse, the protagonist found Nora and Owen waiting. The trio shared a moment of quiet reflection, contemplating the events that had unfolded. Nora, her voice tinged with relief, expressed her gratitude. "I never thought we'd see the end of this nightmare," she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Owen, who had been grappling with his financial troubles, seemed to find a renewed sense of hope. "With Victor gone, maybe things will start to look up," he mused, a tentative smile playing on his lips. The storm, both literal and metaphorical, had passed, leaving behind a clearer path for each character. The protagonist then revisited Elias Crowe's final log entry, found in the lighthouse's service room. The entry was a poignant reflection on the nature of trust and the illusion of security. "Locks don't stop men. They only decide who trusts them," Elias had written, his words resonating deeply with the protagonist. This log entry served as a thematic anchor for the subchapter, reinforcing the idea that true security lies not in physical locks, but in the bonds of trust between individuals. It was a reminder that the mystery wasn't just about solving a crime, but understanding the human elements that had led to it. The subchapter concluded with a scene that encapsulated the island's return to solitude. The lighthouse, now bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, stood as a silent witness to the events that had transpired. The protagonist, standing at the edge of the island, looked out over the calm sea, contemplating the lessons learned. The narrative left readers with a sense of closure, yet invited them to ponder the enduring impact of the mystery on the characters and the island itself. This chapter was essential, as it tied together the narrative threads, providing emotional closure while leaving space for contemplation. It ensured that the characters remained true to their arcs, allowing for growth and introspection in the aftermath of the mystery. Throughout the story, the lighthouse had been more than just a setting. It was a character in its own right, representing isolation and the secrets hidden within its walls. As the protagonists stood there, they realized that the lighthouse would continue to stand, a beacon of light amidst the darkness, much like the trust and understanding that had been forged among the island's inhabitants. The protagonists' thoughts drifted back to the beginning, to the moment they had first set foot on the island, unaware of the storm that would soon engulf them. They had come seeking answers, driven by a belief in evidence and the truth it could reveal. Now, as they prepared to leave, they carried with them not just the solution to a mystery, but a deeper understanding of the complexities of human nature. The lighthouse, once a place of isolation and suspicion, had become a symbol of resilience and hope. It stood as a testament to the power of trust and the strength of the human spirit to overcome adversity. As the protagonists turned away from the sea, they knew that the lessons learned on Harker's Point Light would stay with them long after they had left the island behind. The chapter closed with the protagonist walking back towards the lighthouse, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the island. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered, a reminder of the fragile balance between trust and betrayal, security and vulnerability. It was a balance that each character would continue to navigate, their lives forever changed by the events that had unfolded on that stormy night. The storm had finally released its grip on Harker's Point, leaving behind a world washed clean, yet still heavy, with the weight of what had transpired. The lighthouse stood tall against the clearing sky, its silhouette a stark reminder of the events that had unfolded within its walls. Inside, the protagonist found a moment of solitude in the lighthouse keeper's quarters, a space imbued with the history and duty of those who had come before. The room was sparse, yet every object seemed to hold a story. The air was thick with the scent of salt and aged wood, a testament to the years spent in isolation and vigilance. At the center of this room was Elias Crowe's desk, a place that seemed to echo with the weight of years spent in solitude. It was here that the protagonist sat, feeling the presence of the late keeper as if he were still there, guiding them through the mystery that had gripped the island. On the desk lay Elias's logbook, its pages filled with meticulous entries that chronicled the life of a man dedicated to his craft. The protagonist opened the logbook with care, each page a testament to Elias's unwavering commitment to the lighthouse and the safety of those who depended on its light. As they turned to the final entry, the gravity of Elias's last words became clear. Written just hours before his untimely death, the entry was a poignant reflection of Elias's thoughts and suspicions. It was a mix of technical observations and personal musings, a window into the mind of a man who had spent decades in quiet contemplation. Elias wrote about the nature of trust, both in the mechanics of the lighthouse and in the people who surrounded him. He likened locks to trust. Both were meant to provide security, yet both could be deceived. This metaphor resonated deeply with the protagonist, who had witnessed firsthand the betrayal and deception that had unfolded on the island. The entry hinted at Elias's growing unease about the telegraph system and his suspicion of Victor Haynes. Although coded in the language of a seasoned keeper, Elias's words spoke volumes about his intent to confront the issue head-on, despite the looming storm. There was a sense of foreboding in his reflections, a recognition of danger that he could not fully escape. The protagonist was struck by Elias's courage and integrity, qualities that ultimately cost him his life. This realization sparked a profound sense of respect and admiration for the late keeper. As the protagonist read, the emotional weight of Elias's words became palpable. The storm may have passed and the mystery may have been solved, but the impact of Elias's final words lingered, serving as a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the thin line between trust and betrayal. The protagonist closed the logbook with reverence, a symbolic gesture of closure and tribute to Elias's legacy. Leaving the room, the protagonist reflected on the lessons learned from this harrowing experience. The island, once a place of isolation and mystery, now seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as the storm clouds drifted away. Yet, the memory of Elias Crowe and his unwavering dedication to his duty would remain etched in the very fabric of the lighthouse, a testament to the man who had given his life in pursuit of the truth. The protagonist stepped outside, feeling the cool breeze on their face, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere that had filled the lighthouse during the storm. The sea stretched out before them, vast and unknowable, much like the mysteries of human nature that they had come to understand more deeply through Elias's final log entry. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the island, the protagonist pondered the nature of trust and the illusions of security that pervade our lives. Elias's words echoed in their mind, a reminder that locks and trust are only as strong as the hands that hold them. The protagonist knew that the lessons learned from this experience would guide them in the future, a beacon of light in the often murky waters of human relationships. The island returned to its quiet solitude, the lighthouse standing as a sentinel against the encroaching darkness. Yet, the memory of Elias Crowe and his final log entry would linger, a lasting impression that resonated beyond the final pages of the book. The protagonist understood that while the storm had passed, the journey of understanding and reflection would continue, guided by the light of Elias's legacy. As the protagonist walked away from the lighthouse, they felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The lessons learned from Elias's final log entry would not be forgotten, serving as a guiding light in their own journey through life. The storm may have tested their resolve, but it had also revealed the strength and resilience that lay within, a testament to the enduring power of truth and integrity. In the end, Elias's final log entry was more than just a record of events. It was a testament to the man he was and the legacy he left behind. It was a reminder that even in the face of adversity, the truth will always find a way to shine through, lighting the path for those who are willing to see it. And so, as the protagonist left the island behind, they carried with them the lessons of Harker's Point, a beacon of hope and understanding in a world often shrouded in mystery, setting the scene. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a serene yet eerie calm that enveloped the island. The air felt crisp and rejuvenating, a stark contrast to the chaos that had raged only hours before. The lighthouse stood resolute against the backdrop of a clear sky, its beams slicing through the lingering mist like a guardian of the newfound tranquility. Yet, this peace was deceptive, a mere mask for the island's dark secrets. The tumultuous events had left an indelible mark, and the quiet solitude now seemed to echo the whispers of untold truths. As the sun rose, painting the horizon with hues of orange and pink, the island slowly began to stir back to life. The waves lapped gently against the rocks, a soothing rhythm that belied the violence they had witnessed. Nature's fury had transformed into a gentle lullaby, yet the scars of the storm were evident in the scattered debris and the raw, exposed earth. The lighthouse, a silent witness to the unfolding drama, stood as a symbol of resilience and mystery, its light a beacon for both safety and secrets. Emotional aftermath. Standing at the edge of the cliff, the protagonist gazed out over the vast expanse of ocean. The air was fresh, carrying with it a sense of renewal, yet the weight of recent events pressed heavily on their shoulders. The chaos of the past days replayed in their mind, each memory a vivid reminder of the unexpected betrayal and the fragile nature of trust. The storm had not only ravaged the island, but had also torn through the fabric of relationships, leaving behind a tangled web of emotions. This moment of solitude became a personal reckoning. The protagonist needed to process the emotional upheaval and confront the harsh realities that had been uncovered. The island's quiet solitude offered a space for reflection, a chance to sift through the debris of their thoughts and find clarity amidst the confusion. It was a time to acknowledge the pain of betrayal and the necessity of moving forward with a renewed understanding of trust and security. Character reflection. Nora Pike, the assistant keeper, moved with purpose as she tended to the lighthouse's maintenance. Her hands were steady, but there was a newfound solemnity in her demeanor. She had always been capable and efficient, yet now her actions were tinged with a deeper awareness. As she worked, her thoughts drifted to Elias and their complex relationship. She realized the depth of her own isolation and the importance of genuine connections. The storm had forced her to confront the reality of her solitude and the need for meaningful bonds. Owen Burke, the Coast Guard runner, was busy packing his belongings, preparing to leave the island. His financial struggles had weighed heavily on him, but recent events had provided a new perspective. As he folded his clothes and gathered his things, he reflected on the choices he had made. The storm had been a catalyst for change, and he vowed to seek a better path. Honoring Elias's memory by living with integrity became his new guiding principle, a commitment to himself and to those he cared about. The protagonist's realization. Sitting in the lighthouse's small study, the protagonist revisited Elias's final log entry. The words seemed to leap off the page, resonating with a profound wisdom about trust and the illusion of security. Elias had always believed in the power of locks and order, yet his final thoughts revealed a deeper understanding of the human condition. The protagonist found themselves reflecting on the complexities of relationships and the true nature of security. This reflection deepened their understanding of the bonds that forge genuine connections. True security, they realized, came not from physical locks, but from the trust built between individuals. The storm had stripped away the superficial layers, revealing the core truths that lay beneath. It was a lesson in vulnerability and strength, a reminder that trust was both fragile and powerful, closure and continuation. Victor was escorted off the island by authorities, his presence a stark reminder of the events that had unfolded. The protagonist watched as the boat departed, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over them. The island began to reclaim its quiet solitude, yet the memory of Elias and the lessons learned remained vivid. The storm had been a catalyst for change, and as the island settled back into its natural rhythm, the protagonist felt a sense of closure. Yet, this was not an end but a continuation. The experiences and insights gained would travel with them, shaping their future actions and decisions. The island had become a part of their story, a chapter that would influence the pages yet to be written. As the boat disappeared from view, the protagonist turned back to the lighthouse, feeling a sense of gratitude for the trials and revelations it had brought. Bridging to the conclusion, with a final walk around the island, the protagonist absorbed the sights and sounds that had become so familiar. The gentle rustle of leaves, the distant call of seabirds, and the rhythmic crash of waves created a symphony of serenity. Pausing at the lighthouse, they placed a hand on its sturdy walls, acknowledging the role it had played in both sheltering and revealing the truth. This moment served as a bridge to the conclusion, where the protagonist would leave the island but carry its lessons forward. The lighthouse had been more than a structure, it had been a symbol of resilience and revelation. As they stood there, the protagonist felt a profound connection to the place, a bond forged through shared experiences and hard-earned truths. The island had been a stage for transformation, and as they prepared to leave, they knew that its impact would linger long after the journey had ended. Final reflection. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the island, the protagonist penned a final entry in their own journal. The words flowed easily, capturing the essence of the journey and the unexpected allies who had become integral to their story. They wrote about the enduring power of truth and the resilience that had emerged from the trials faced. This entry served as a personal testament to growth and transformation, a reflection of the island's quiet solitude and the indelible impact of the events. The protagonist understood that the journey was far from over. The lessons learned on the island would guide them through future challenges, shaping their path with newfound wisdom and understanding. The island's quiet solitude had been a catalyst for change, and as they closed the journal, they felt a sense of peace and purpose. The storm had passed, but its legacy would endure, a reminder of the strength found in vulnerability and the power of trust.